Okay, Zara says we want to start, so we're going to start. What are we up to? Okay. All right, let me close the chat. All right, so just to let you know, I generally don't use the chat during my presentations. I'm too focused on my stuff, and it gets me off topic. And so, like I said, I generally don't do that. I know some people use the chat for that sort of stuff, but it just doesn't work for me. So if you have questions, you need to put them in the Q&A. If you do, you put them in there, and when I get done with my presentation, I'll go through every one of them. And there's always time for follow-ups and all that. But that's what I recommend. I'm not a chat fan. Chat's good for you to your friends and for Zara, but not so good for me as the presenter. Like I said, other presenters like it, but I can't do it. Okay, so welcome to our presentation for tonight. This is Spooky2 for beginners. Hopefully, it won't be too basic for everybody out there, but I do basic stuff. I can answer technical stuff, and I will in the Q&A. That's not a problem, highly technical stuff. But these are aimed at people who are new to Spooky. That's what I specialize in. So, and you'll see my email. I respond to email usually with that day or the next day. You can send me any questions you want. That's not a problem. I have a Telegram channel, and I have a YouTube channel where I post videos of how to do stuff. I had somebody today was looking, they wanted to do an upgrade of their Spooky system, to upgrade the software, but they didn't know how. And it's like, oh, I have a 4-minute video for that. So I sent them a link to that, and it's straightforward. Okay, so disclaimer. The usual disclaimer. Hey, I am, I'm doing. That didn't work. Um, hang on, let me fix my stuff. All right, I, this is information is experimental and education purposes only. I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice, and Spooky isn't there to replace medical stuff. So it is an experimental process. It does work, at least in my opinion, it does. And so, that's my disclaimer. Copies of the presentation are available. They'll be available at the Spooky2 Academy website there'll be a link in the presentation stuff that we have there. And also you can send me an email and I'll send it to you as well. So you might want to write down the email address if you haven't, spookytechhelp@gmail.com. That's my personal email that I use only for Spooky. Okay, who the heck am I? Well, for those of you who haven't been in my presentations, I'm an information technology specialist since 1979. I'm retired though at the moment. I'm a techie. I've been doing tech support, and I'm really good at bringing technical stuff uh, to to people who aren't technical. That is my specialty. So, like I said, hopefully this won't be too basic for you. I've been a Spooky user since 2018. I have 2 GX generators. I have 18 now XM generators. 2 of them are in Phoenix, Arizona, which I use. The rest of them are here. Well, actually, now I have 1 XM and a GX that's in Arizona right now. But that's part of my set. I've had a coil silver kit since 22. I had the Centron plasma since 23, and I have a scaler, which I spelled wrong, which I always spelled that way, since March of 24. Okay, you feel free to contact me with any questions. Okay, so why am I doing this particular presentation? Spooky2 has a reputation of being very complex, and it really isn't. It looks very complex. It looks really daunting, especially for people who aren't computer people and all that, but it's really not. It can be complex or easy. It's up to you. And the easy part works really well. It doesn't have to be complex. And that's what I'm trying to establish in this presentation tonight. So what I'm trying to do is provide you with the skills. You can run a custom preset that you're going to build using the Programs tab and the Spooky2 software. And that's where I'm building this out of. There's lots of things you can do with Spooky, but I find that the vast majority of things you're going to want to do stem from the Programs tab, which I'm going to demonstrate a bunch of in just a few minutes. So I'm going to show you what is a preset, what is a program, what we're going to create a custom preset, we're going to load it in the generator, and we're going to save it, and we're going to run it all. That's what we're doing tonight. And it sounds simple. That's because it is simple. But I find that if I demonstrate this stuff, that people who are really worried about it, they get over that. There will be plenty of time for various questions later because this is not going to be a super long presentation. Okay, so prerequisites. Well, number one, you're going to need a Windows computer running Spooky2. There are some ways to run Windows in a non-Windows environment. That's not for the faint of heart. Those are for the moderately technical people. But most of us, we're going to Windows computer. You can get you can get $100, $150 refurbished computer from Amazon to run this, and that runs just fine. As a matter of fact, it'll run on XP. I wouldn't recommend it, but it will. One of my computers is running Windows 7, and it's happy doing it, and it's a 14-year-old machine. It not a problem. One of the things I tell people is, from a spooky point of view, if you need a computer, the first place I would recommend looking is I'd look in my closet. Anybody who's had a computer for a long time has replaced it at least once and not known what to do with the old one. And so it's in their closet or under their desk or whatever. And that computer will work fine for Spooky. If you don't have any of those at your home, ask your friends, because there's a fair chance they've got one. So you can save some money that way. You need at least one Spooky2 generator that's not in use to do all this stuff. You need a boost and a remote, which is what I'm demonstrating tonight. And I'll talk about why is that in a minute. You've got to have the Spooky2 software installed, and you need the generator drivers installed. If you need help with any of that, I actually have videos that demonstrate almost all of that. And so, because of people who are not technical, oh, how do I install the software and that sort of stuff. And so I actually have like 5-minute videos how to do it that actually are aimed at a mouse by mouse process of doing. Not everybody you can't tell everybody, here, go to this download site, download it, install it. That doesn't work for a lot of people. All right, moving on. And you've got to have the generator drivers installed. Okay. Well, what we're going to do, here are the 4 steps to running Spooky2. I said you're going to find the stop generator, you're going to load an empty preset, you're going to add programs, and you're going to add the programs and run them on a generator. Now, what that looks like, let's see, stop share. I'm going to demo this, share. Somewhere in here, I should have, this is my test system that I have. Notice it's in test mode. It's actually the September, I just installed the September stuff just a minute ago. All right, so the steps to this literally are, you've got your Spooky2 installed and everything's ready and just sitting there. Okay, so what you want to do is we're going to go to the control tab and we're going to find a generator that's not running. Ooh, this one's not running. It was running, but it's not running now. You can see because it's this red with the black color. That means it's not running. It's available. I can do anything I want to it. Great. So I have a place to run this. It's important to do that first. People forget that. And if you forget that, then you run into other problems later, meaning you think you're going to load your stuff on it, but it doesn't work. You can't load new stuff on something that's running. It has to be stopped. So I always start there first. That makes the most sense to me. Okay, the next thing you're going to do, step 2, is you're going to go to presets. So here we are on the presets tab, and we're going to go shell empty presets, and we're going to run this in a remote. Do I have? No, I'm going to do that. Okay, so we're going to do remote, and the reason I'm going to do remote is the simplest thing you can do with Spooky. That's why we're doing it. Now, there's a whole bunch of shell in here, and we'll go into what shells are and all that in a minute. I'm just doing a quick demo, and we're going to say that this is a healing one. And the two that you should start out with is healing RJW or killing RJW. These are John White things, these are the basic stuff that's used all over the place. Yes, there's a bunch of other fancy stuff in there. We're not getting fancy tonight. We're doing the basics. So we're going to do a healing. I've loaded this. It says up here on the top, yes, I've loaded this healing shell. Step 3, we're going to go to programs. And in this case, because I've used this a lot for my wife, Restless Legs, all I'm going to do is type in Restless Legs here, and I'm going to do a search. And lo and behold, it found stuff. So I'm going to say, this is this one I want. If I double click on it, click, it adds this down here. So that's a loaded program. And then I want to run it. That's in the control tab. Overwrite the generator, which is really important. Because what I've done is I've loaded this to memory, but it hasn't been on the generator yet. Overwrite generator, it's going to go in there, and I'm going to do a start. And voila, we're now running a restless leg on there. It's that simple. And if we're going to talk about that in a minute, but those are the simple steps. I mean, it literally is 4 steps. Now we're going to do some other fancier things in a minute, but right now we're not. Those are the 4 steps you're going to have to do. And like I said, it's really straightforward. You can make it as complex as you want, but you don't need to. This is one of the first programs that I ran with my wife because she has restless legs. And I was running this in a remote, and it made a huge difference with her. As a matter of fact, every now and then she'd say, are you still running this on me? And I go look, and something had happened to the computer, it turned off or whatever, and it wasn't running anymore. It made that much difference. She could tell because her restless legs came back if she wasn't running this. And I've run this long enough on her. Most of the time she doesn't have restless legs anymore because but it takes time. But a lot of these things will help almost immediately. I probably had to run this for a day or two before it made a difference, but after that, it made a huge difference. So let me go back to my presentation. And so that was my quick demo. And you got to admit, that was pretty quick. Okay. And those are the 4 steps. We found a stop generator we want to look at. And we're using remote mode. We'll talk about that a little more. We load an empty shell for remote. We added the programs to it, and we put it on the generator and ran it. It's that simple. And it really is that simple. Not everything is that simple because not everything's that simple. Now, I want to talk about spooky basics at this point. So number 1, this is what your screen should look like. It should have presets, programs, settings, control, system, and internet and errors. It should have all those 7 tabs across there. If it does not, it needs to. It needs to because every demo you'll ever see of Spooky has those. And when you install the software, it only has 4. And to get all 7, you're going to click on Utils here. You're going to click on Toggle Advanced Features, and then you're going to have all 7 there. It's that simple, and it remembers it. So the next time you start, it'll come up in that mode. So, and there are things that you cannot do in Spooky unless it's in advanced mode. But like I said, when you install, it's not going to be in advanced feature mode. So one of the first things you need to do is turn this on so your screen looks like that. Shell presets. Okay, let's talk about shell. In this case, I'm talking about I'm actually talking about a shell. So it's a self-contained set of instructions to tell the generator what to do. What does that mean? Well, Spooky has a bunch of different types of waveforms that can do square waves, sine waves, sawtooth waves, a whole bunch of stuff like that that we're not going to worry about, but they're all in there, and it has to know how to run something. So that's what the waveforms are. The amplitude, that's how powerful the wave is. Again, that's all part of the studies too. It does not contain any frequencies. You must add those. So when I load the shell healing, I can't run it until I put frequencies in it. As a sidelight here, there's something called a chain preset, which is a list of presets that are glued together so you can run them sequentially. We'll talk about that slightly in here, but I consider that for you, it's a somewhat advanced feature. It's not hard to do, and a lot of the presets that you hear about, like terrain is a chained one that actually consists of 15 different presets, and there's reasons for that, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But for the most part, you're probably not going to need to use those. That's why we're not going to talk about it. Okay, programs. All right. So by the way, consider a shell preset as a recipe. That's what it is. It's a recipe of how to make muffins or whatever you're going to do. All right. Meanwhile, programs are the ingredients. Okay. This is a list of frequencies and the length time to run them. That's what this is. And so these are your ingredients. So presets are recipes and programs are the ingredients. So there's actually 16 different databases. They're over here on the right here that you should be able to see with my mouse. I was going to change the color of my mouse. I forgot. There's 16 different ones, and you can leave them all on. You can turn them off by clicking on them, whatever you want to do. Generally, I leave most of them on all the time. For some reason, in this example, I don't have the molecular weight one turned on. And that's, by the way, molecular weight is where you find all the drugs and all that sort of stuff in there. But there's 16 different ones. You can select them. The BFB database is in there, so if you do biofeedback, all the biofeedbacks get saved in there. And you can search on all of them with the search stuff here. So my favorites, by the way, that I like are EDTFL, this one here, CAFL, and PROV. I like those a lot. If I'm going to do a basic search, I may turn off all the rest of them just to search there and see what I find. That doesn't mean the other ones aren't good, but sometimes if you do a search on I've got a cold, you're going to get a million hits. You get 400 hits or 5,000 hits, whatever it is. And so a lot of times I like to pare that down a little bit. And so I may start with, as a matter of fact, I've done this. I'm going to do a search thing. I'll turn off everything except EDTFL. That's a German one, by the way. And the Germans are very exact. That's why I like it. So I'll search in there and see what I find. And then I might add the CAFL in, but just click it on the CAFL. And then I'll add the PRV in as well. And to see what I get. And if I get enough in there, I usually stop there. I usually don't go from there, but that's me personally. You can leave them all on and see what you get. That's what I would do as a beginner. That's what I did as a beginner. And finally, we're going to talk about the control tab. So that's where you control the Spooky2 generators. Each generator has a little icon over here. That's where it is. What did I do? Oh, this is out of one. I'm trying to figure out what system this is on. Shown on the left side of the screen. The red ones are not in use. The green ones are running at the moment. By the way, if you'll notice here, I'll throw this in just for this one. This number 5 here, notice it's bolded. That's because it's dedicated to the plasma. So this is my living room. Yep, it says up here. This is my living room setup that I do. So that's dedicated to plasma, and that's why it's bold. Okay, so once you click on a generator, you can use the various buttons to control what the generator's doing. That's the whole idea. Got to click on a generator. It'll say, yep, this is generator 1. It's doing this. Although right now it's not doing anything. And I can start it, stop it, scan it, whatever I want to do. At this point, all we're going to talk about is start, pause, and stop. So start and pause it down here and stop. All the rest, literally all the rest of the stuff on the screen doesn't make a lot of difference to you, okay? We're not talking about that stuff at the moment. We could, but we're not going to, because what we're doing is as a load and run sort of stuff. I found something, I want to run it. I don't worry about any of this waveform stuff because that was set in the preset. I don't care about the amplitude. It was set in the preset. The length of time, if I'm running anything in remote mode, which is what we're talking about here, it runs forever. That's what it's supposed to do. It runs 24/7, which, by the way, is why you might want to make sure number one, that your computer doesn't go to sleep, because if it does, the generator stops. You want to make sure it doesn't install any maintenance, because if it does, it's going to reboot and Spooky is going to stop. So it's another reason. So those are the things. It's going to run 24/7. That's just the way it works. And if the generator stops, then everything does. Or excuse me, if the computer stops, everything stops. So that's what we're talking about. This is like I said, a very basic and get you started quickly sort of presentation. Okay. So there's other tabs: the settings tab, system tab, internet tab, and errors tab. Those are back here. That's settings, system, internet, and errors, and I guess that's all that are in here. We're not talking about it because this is a getting started. That's what this is. And so it's where you do some advanced stuff. And these are, like I said, I almost never use those things. Occasionally I use the settings tab, but it's rare. I don't need to. It's because I'm nosy. I want to see what it's doing. But for the most part, you're going to be using presets, programs, and control, and you can do literally 99% of anything you want to do with the Spooky will be done within those. Okay, that covers most of your stuff. Okay. So the 4 steps with some explanation. So we're going to go through the 4 steps again. Okay, the first thing we need to do is find a stopped generator. The reason we need to find a stop generator, notice this is in the control tab, so the arrow's for, and this one is stopped. The reason we want to find a stop generator is because if I load a preset, I put some programs in it, and then I try to put it in one of these generators that's running, it won't. It doesn't give you an error, but it won't work. Whatever is there will stay there. That's a gotcha for Spooky. So one of the things that captures people is they do this and it doesn't load it in and they don't notice that it didn't load it, but they're not running the stuff they want to do. That's why I always start with a stop generator. Always. I check that first, because if I get to the point where I've created this preset and I don't have a stop generator, it's like, uh-oh, I'm probably going to have to do this again because there's no way to stop the generator without overriding what's in memory. And so I have to create it again. So step one is finding a stop generator. So here is what, I'm using remote mode. And part of this is you need to make sure your correct delivery hardware is hooked up. I'm using remote mode because that actually works really well. There's lots of people out there that have been using Spooky for 10 plus years, literally, and that all they use is remote mode. They feel the remote mode is very effective, and it is. And it is because, number one, there's no wires, so that you can be anywhere you want in the world or universe. That's not a problem, and so and it does work. Now it takes time to work. You're generally not going to see results in 5 minutes. It doesn't work that way, but you will probably see results, depending on what you have, within 24 hours, and certainly within a few days, you should notice a difference. And it runs 24/7. That's its purpose in life. And it's sending this stuff, through, and I'm too tired to figure out what I can't remember what the technical term is, but trust me, it goes there. It goes through your DNA. Generally, in the remote here, you're going to put a fingernail. That's what most people do. Fingernails are good for essentially indefinitely, depending on who you talk to. You're going to put a fingernail in there. You're going to hook the remote to the boost on this connector right here. This is the BN one. That's where it goes. You could hook it up there, and we never use that one. So we use this one, and there is a difference. And then this is the blue generator, the XM generator, and it hooks up like this. And I've seen people where that they didn't hook it up right. So when you hook it up right, it goes on out one, out two. So on this side, and these four connectors on this are on the top. That's really important to know, because I've seen a number of people install it upside down or on the wrong ones or whatever. So that's an important thing to think about for our newbies here. So I like remote. Remote works really well. It seems so simple, and it is simple. And it's like, well, how can this work? And I can't tell you exactly how it works. I can't prove it works, other than I use it all the time, and it works very well. I've been very happy with it, and most people like it as well, and it works really well for them. All right, so we now have the correct delivery hardware. Now, if you're going to do contact mode, that's different stuff. That's going to do PEMF. No, excuse me. That's going to do TENS pads and connectors and all that sort of stuff. But right now, and for this presentation, I'm only demonstrating the remote mode. And by the way, I have other presentations that I've done for contact mode and cold laser and PEMF coils and all that. And I'd recommend, if you want to use any of those other modes, those presentations that I've done for Spooky are good ones to watch, and they cover the basics and the whys and wherefores. But that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to get people up and running quickly, and remote mode is the way to do it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to load a shell preset. That was step 2, okay? Again, this is in the presets tab, so you can click on that, and we're going to go down to shell empty presets. So remember, this is the recipe. That I need to load a recipe for this. So I'm going to load a recipe. Once I get into the presets and shell, I have to decide, how am I going to deliver the frequencies? Well, like I said, in this presentation, we're doing remote mode because it's the simplest to do. So now it's going to load the recipe for remote mode, because there's different recipes for different ways to deliver the frequencies. Again, we're not doing any frequencies yet. We're just loading the recipe. Once we click on remote, then we're going to get this long list of various other things that have come up that people have experimented with over the years. So let me tell you about Spooky in the background. Spooky in the background has been around for a long time. And, for probably 12, 14, 15, 16 years. It's a long time. And it grew up as a very experimental piece of software and hardware. That's one of the reasons there's so many things that are so confusing in it, because there's a bunch of super technical guys, and I'm not one of them, who was on the basis of this and saying, oh, we could do this or we could do that. Let's try this. Let's try that. There's a lot of let's try this that's in the system that it didn't work out that well. I mean, it didn't hurt, but they found it wasn't that effective. But John White never takes anything out. If it puts it in, it stays in forever. And the YouTube videos are a good example of that. So my advice when you're starting out, at some point we can talk about some of these other things, and some of the other presentations will talk about them. But I recommend you start out with healing RJW, and that's for healing stuff. We're going to talk about that in a second. Or killing RJW, and the R means it's remote because we selected a remote, and this is for healing or killing. So that's what you're going to load, one of the two. Once you do that, we go on to step 3. We're going to add some programs. And so in the Programs tab, again, these are the ingredients. I simply did I typed in restless because my wife has restless legs. I did a search. It found restless leg syndrome, and we'll talk about what if it doesn't find it later on. It found this. What I do here is I double click on this, click, and it's going to put it down here. That's what it's going to do, which I demoed that in the beginning. And I'm going to do the demo again in a second. So now we've put it into the list. So now we have a recipe and we have ingredients. So we've done that. So let's go on. What do you do with this? Well, now we go back to the control tab. This is control. We're going to click on overwrite generator. That's a really important thing, by the way. If you forget to click on overwrite generator, this is gotcha number 2 for newbies. If you forget to click on that, what it does is it loads whatever in the generator in the memory. So whatever you just created in memory from the presets tab and programs tab just got overwritten. So be careful of that. And you need to get in the habit of it. And I forget every now and then. I mean, that's what I do. And it's like, oh crap, I forgot. I have to go back and do it again. So in this case, we're going to click on overwrite generator. We're going to click on the generator, and it's going to say, yep, generator 3 is now a healing one because I put it in, and I'm going to hit start. Voila. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it takes me probably 5 minutes to do something new, depending on what I need to put in and that sort of stuff and how complex it's going to be. But it's not that hard to do. Actually, it's much harder to install the software and hook up the hardware than it is to run it. Most people don't understand that. It's much more difficult to, and it's not that hard to do either one of those, but people aren't that technical is the issue. And this isn't that bad once you get into it. Okay, so we've covered that. So we've done that. So what next? And this is the part where I'm going to demo. So we've done that. So what can we do? Well, we can save what we've done, which is really important. What I found when I got my Spooky, some years ago, is that I would do stuff and it worked really well. And so now I'd go off and I'd do something else with it. And then 3 months from now, it was like, whatever that is, I've got that again or whatever it is. So what do I do? Well, it's like, well, I know I did something with Spooky. Well, which preset did I use? Which programs did I use? Because most of the time you do a search that comes up with a list of 12 programs. So which one should I do? And so I found that was really confusing, trying to figure that out. So the way you fix that is we save it. So we're going to go through the steps again. So what we're going to do is let me see what I am. Okay. We're going to go through the control tab. I'm going to do a demo in this a minute. And we're going to find a stop generator, just like we have before. And we're going to use remote mode. We're going to go to the presets tab. We're going to load the recipe, shell empty preset. We're going to go to the programs tab. We're going to add programs to it. But then we're going to save it. That's an inserted step. And that's going to be, now we're going to do save it. We go back to the presets tab, click on the save button and name it. And then we're going to load the one we just saved, go to control tab and run it. So at this point, I'm actually going to demo that. So that's what this looks like. So we're going to go through this once again. So we're going to stop my share. And then I'm going to share test screen here. And it still is good. All right, so here we are. So the first thing we do is go to the control tab. I got to find the generator. We're going to use this one this time. And we're going to stop this generator. Okay, so we've stopped that generator. Now what? Now we go to the presets tab. We go to home, and we're going to say shell empty presets. And I'm still going to do it remote. And this time I'm going to do killing. Killing RJW. Okay, so that's what we've done. Now we go to programs, and this time I want to do a search on something else. I want to do a search on I know, leg infection, because I've had that before. The infection. Let's see what we can find. It found none. That's really good. Let's do it for legs. So now it's found 9, by the way. That's sorry. It found 365 that are legs, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that it's in there. So one of the things that we have to consider in here is, and we're going to talk about this briefly here, is if we go look at, let's see, what do I want to look at? Back. Okay, leg swelling. Okay, leg swelling is an interesting one. And leg swelling, in my opinion, would be a healing thing, because and the difference between healing and killing is, are there pathogens involved? So if there's bacteria, viruses, or parasites, you're killing them. And that's what you're doing. So if you look at this one, it doesn't say it is, but it says it's a disease. And I have no idea what perthus means. But it says it's a disease. If it's a disease, you're killing. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You know, things like syndromes are debatable, but certainly, and ulcers, let's see, that tends to be more of a healing thing. With Legionnaire's disease. Yep, I remember that when that came up. That dates me. Anyway, so, I mean, that was a lung infection. It's a disease. So if we're going to do diseases, we need to do killing, and which is what we decided. So I'm going to add some disease stuff in here. So I want to throw that in and that in. So I'm just double clicking on them. I don't know what this is, but it sounds bad, so we'll throw it in. And so I can just double click on a few things in here that are killing, because that's what I decided to do. And we'll talk about the difference between that in a minute. Can't see my screen anymore. That sounds nice. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stuff in here that is diseases, because we started with killing. And again, I'll get to that in a minute. So we've done this. Now, what we, in step, what was it, step 4, we would load this, but we're not going to load this. I want to save this somewhere. So I'm going to go back to presets, and that's part of what we're doing here. We're going to go back to presets, and I'm going to have, I haven't created it yet, but there's going to be a checklist available for this. Here are the steps. Even though they're pretty simple, what I found is if you have something you can refer to, after you've done it 10 times, you won't need to refer to it anymore. But it's really nice to have here's the 10 things you need to do, or in this case, the 5 things you need to do this. And I will have a checklist created for this, and it'll be available tomorrow, and it'll be available with the presentation. So you can print it out and tape it up next to your monitor, or wherever you're going to do it, and so you can remember how to do it. Anyway, so we went back here, and this little diskette here, if you remember what diskettes are, that's how you save things. I'm going to save it. And it's going to be, and what I do and what I recommend, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, is I like to save things by person. At least that's where I start. So if I'm doing something for John or Mary or whatever, I create a folder for them, which is actually pretty easy. If we can go here and create a new folder for Jack and hit enter. So now I have a Jack folder, but I'm going to save this in Jack. So I double click on that, and then we're going to save this. And so I don't remember what I called it. This is some sort of infection thing, and I'm going to talk about naming conventions in a minute. 2025 1001 R, and we'll get into those details in a second. Dash infection. Okay, that's what we're going to call this. So that's what it's going to be named forever. We saved it. So the way we'll get to that is this little guy here. That's my user directory. I click on there. Here it is, and it's in Jack. I can click on Jack, and this is what I just saved. And so a year from now, and I have stuff that goes back to 2020. It would go back further than that. I changed computers or had some problems or whatever. But I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of stuff that I've run for various things on my family. So I click on this one now because it has all the stuff in it. it has the recipe, it has the ingredients, and now I can go to the control tab, overwrite the generator, click on this, and remember, that puts the name in that I put in. It's going to run these things like I want it to. I hit start, and voila, it's now running a remote mode for all these conditions sequentially. Hopefully this is making sense. Let's see, back to share, back to my presentation, and let it catch up. Okay. So we just went through these steps. I mean, literally, essentially, this is the worksheet, by the way. This slide is your sheet of what you need to do, but I'm going to have a separate one for this. Anyway, these are the steps you need to do. And as you can see, it's actually pretty straightforward. So let's go back in here and, all right. So number one, I always save them, always, because I never know when I'm going to want to do it again. I showed you how I created a folder with the name of the person. When I actually first started out, and I still have a bunch of these, I actually organized all my saved ones by how I was delivering. So I had a remote folder and a contact folder and all that. But and then when I was just doing stuff on me and my wife, that worked pretty well. But then I started doing stuff on my daughter. And then I started doing stuff on my next door neighbor and the neighbor down the street, or my neighbor or my family in Phoenix, 1,200 miles away from me, or whatever. And it became difficult to know. I mean, if somebody's saying, "Hey, I have that problem again," if John told me that, okay, well, I don't know what I ran for John. I mean, if I keep it structured that way, I know what I ran for John. The other thing I like to have the data, and I know when I ran it, because that can come in handy as well. And it makes it real easy to do. Okay, so I created the volume. I have this example of what I did with the phoresis legs. Keep in mind that Spooky always shows things in alphabetical order. So when you click on anything that's a preset, it's going to sort them automatically. You can't change it in the alphabetical order. So anything that I've saved, because I put the date in first, is always going to be at the bottom of the list. That's really helpful in a couple of years when you have a couple hundred of these things. So that's something I recommend. That's why I always do it with the date first. And of course, this is under a person's name in their folder. That's why I don't have their name in this. And so I prefer that. And I always add the delivery type. That's what this R is, because that actually follows the convention of most of the presets in Spooky. So I have remote contact plasma. I use SS for scalar because I occasionally do some of that. Let's see, is that plasma? Is that everything? There's something else missing, I'm sure. But anyway, that's what I put in. Okay. Now, again, this is the 4 steps I just demoed. We find a stop generator. We're going to make sure that our delivery stuff is all set up. We're going to load the shell preset. We're going to go add the shell preset. Step 3, we're going to add various programs to it. Step 4, this is where we're going to save it. That's this green thing here in the presets tab. So, and I have the example in here. I'm going to create a new folder because the new person, I put the new person's name here. This was Susan in this particular example. I double click on Susan, so it opened up, see it says Susan, and then I'm going to name it. And notice I said all this here, just like I said. Okay, and how do you load it? Because I didn't show that, I guess. Back in presets, yes, I did show this. You hit the little person icon here. There's give me the list of stuff. It's in Susan. I did double click on Susan, and here's what I saved in there. And if I had 18 things for Susan, they'd be in there. And then I overwrite the generator, put it in the generator, and run it. It is that simple, literally. So, how many programs are you? Before I do that, I want to show you something in here which gets really interesting. At least I think it is. Share, and we'll go to where? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So here we are, and I want to go to programs for a minute because programs, you can do anything in here. I mean, you know, you look at quadriplegic. That was interesting. Quadriplegic, because it's right there. Quad. I only found the one, but it was in there. Um, most afflictions you can find here with the search. It's amazing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, but the essentially, whatever comes back, there are, I cleared this because it's going to be give me a list in just a minute, hopefully, of there's 62,891 programs in here. It's actually more than that. Oh no, that's how many there is that you can use. They're all in there, so you can find all kinds of stuff in here, and that's the reason, and not why this four-step program, that this four-step works really well, because you can find whatever you need there. So let me go back and stop share and let's go back to so go back to yeah, where there, slideshow. Okay. Now, one of the things that happens is you can do multiples in it, like kidney stuff. And that's what I'm doing here. Kidney, there's a whole bunch of things that showed up in here. Well, I can add them into this, and I can by just double clicking on them. But the problem is when you do that, oops, like when I clicked on the first one, it's going to run for 24 minutes. And all these other things I click have their own run in them. Here's the rule of thumb. You don't want to add more than 4 hours of stuff down here. That's in the estimated total, which I can't see because I have stuff in the way. Can we move that? I don't want to. But you can add as many as you want. You should keep it 4 hours or less. And the reason for that is mathematical. And if it's 4 hours, you're going to hit every frequency 6 times in a 24-hour period. And that's what people who were building this stuff originally, that's what they found to be most effective. So that's what I would do. Limit it to 4 hours most of the time. You can go more if you really need to, but I wouldn't go much more than that. And keep in mind, if you only put in 2 hours worth of stuff, then you're going to hit everything 12 times. So I think it's going to be more effective anyway. Okay. All right, so mixing healing and killing. That's one of the challenges people get into a lot. For the most part, you shouldn't do that. If you have a kidney infection, you really need to run infection stuff. Healing stuff is interesting, but I would avoid that. There's no reason to do that, because by killing whatever's doing it, it'll heal itself. That's the idea. And so you usually don't need to do that. On the other hand, kidney is a great example of this, because lots of people have really poor kidney function because of their lifestyle, because of the drugs they've taken, usually prescription drugs. Anyway, the kidneys aren't functioning anymore. That's not a result, and they don't have an active infection for that. It's just they're worn out or damaged over time. That's a healing thing. Those are healing things, and there's no point in running other things for that. Just run what you run the healing stuff in that case. Sorry. If you have a situation where you really think you need to run both, I would use the universal square H-bomb. If you really need to mix, you really think you need to. Part of running Spooky is doing what you think you should. There's an infinite aspect of running Spooky, and I can't explain it. And other than that, it's like, well, that sounds good. I should do this. And if you really feel like you need to run a healing one in your kidneys and kill stuff at the same time, you feel you should do it. And if you're going to do that, I'd use the universal square bomb for that. One of the problems with some of this is the killing, the killing presets are more harsh. They have to be, because they're killing. And so they can cause more Herxheimer reactions, which is like flu-like symptoms or that sort of stuff. And we even do that if you're just trying to improve your kidney function. So generally, when you're doing healing, it's a less harsh. It's more of a gentle. It's more of a gentle healing sort of stuff. Because it's a gentle thing, and it takes longer too. By the way, it just does, because you're trying to heal something that took whatever to damage it. I've actually done healing stuff on me. I broke a bone in my foot a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine did it at almost the same thing at the same time. And I was running contact mode stuff on it and some remote stuff on it, and I made some stickers for it as well. And 3 weeks after I broke the bone, I went in, and I never had surgery, didn't need it. I went in to see the orthopedic surgeon, and he did a new x-ray, and he couldn't find the break anymore, which was fine with me. Still hurt, but it was healing really fast. And after about 8 weeks, it still hurt a little bit, but it wasn't a real problem at this point. But my friend who had the same sort of thing, that their stuff hurt for the next 8 months. Mine after 3 months didn't hurt at all. So I believe in that stuff. It works really well, and that's a good example of healing. Anyway, so if you're going to mix. And I've heard of people that aren't getting results from their healing, and so what they'll end up doing is they'll use the same programs and run it in killing for a couple hours, and then the rest of the time they'll run it in healing to try to make it more effective. I'm just experimenting with that now, so I can't give you firsthand experience. Okay, so and most presets that do healing and killing use two presets. They use a healing preset and a killing preset, and they chain them together, which means they run sequentially, which is beyond the scope of what we're doing here, other than the fact that I'm mentioning it. And a good example of that actually is terrain. When you run terrain, which is a detox, the detox is actually a combination of healing and killing. And that's one of the reasons it runs for 11 days, and there's actually 15 presets in it, because some of them are healing and some of them are killing and some of them are both. And so when David Bork, who created that, did it, he did it as 15 different ones, and he glued them together to run sequentially in a chain. And again, chain is not something we're going to cover here. I just want you to know about it because you'll hear it referenced every now and then. Okay, so what if you can't find a program? I see this on Facebook a lot. People can't find anything. It's what I do for that stuff, and even if I can find it, I tend to do a Google search on things because I want to find out what it is, and I want to find out related. My brother-in-law has this hydro, whatever it is, which means he has a cyst in his spine. And so I didn't know what it was, and I looked up, and it's a cyst in the spine. There's actually programs for this. There's one in Spooky. But what I decided to run on him is not only this, but some cyst programs as well. And so, and what's happened in this is he was getting much worse in over time, and running this stuff seems to have arrested it. It's not getting any better because it's really hard to cure or to cure. It's really hard to help heal nerve damage, which is what this causes, because you get a cyst, it presses on the nerves die, and that sort of stuff. But at least it seems to have arrested the problem at this point, because he's actually a quadriplegic, has been for 50 years, and it was getting to the point he's having trouble digesting food now. He never had that problem before. He had limited ability with his right hand to move his wheelchair around. He can't do that anymore. And it didn't come back either yet at this point. And none of that seems to be getting any better, but it's not getting any worse. So that's better than nothing. Okay, we're into the summary stuff. Like I said, this is short for me. So we talked about what is a preset. In this case, what is a shell preset? What is a program? Those are important things to understand. And you need to keep your terms right. You need to understand the difference between a preset and a program, because otherwise you'll get really confused. We talked about the 4 steps to running Spooky2 programs. It's really straightforward. It's really simple. You should be able to literally, once you have everything installed, you should be able to say, yep, I have this problem. What do I do? And 4 minutes from now, you should be running it, literally, right? We talk about how to cut it, and that I do that. We're creating a custom preset because I use a shell. I add the program they want, and then they run it. Although I also save it because I believe in saving everything. I think that works best. And that's what I really recommend you do, because trust me, you'll come back 3 months from now, and you'll say, how the heck did I do that? That happens to me. It still happens to me, but it's a lot better now. Actually, my wife who left today, she needed some lumbar stuff. I have a sticker for that. And it was out there and I knew where to find it. And so I made her some of those stickers, and I sent her some restless leg stickers and something else. I don't remember what it was, but again, it's easy to find, and so, and I'm a sticker person, and I did a really good presentation on stickers 2 months ago, I think, because I like stickers, and you don't need anything special to do stickers except holographic stickers, which are $8 for 1,000 from Amazon. Okay, so what else? So I do one-on-one training if that's important to you, although I have a really nice group of YouTube videos that will help people who are unsure about how to do things, because I'm a task person. It's like, how do I use the cold laser? Or how do I install the software? Or one of the ones I did this year is I got a generator error. What do I do about that? Those didn't exist. That type of stuff didn't exist before. So I like that sort of stuff, and you'll find a lot of that stuff on my YouTube as well. I've done everything from unboxing to specific accessory training. I do all that stuff. I don't do remote treatments for others. Nope. Sorry. If you want to do remote treatments, you need to buy your own stuff. I'll help you set it up. I'll help you run it. But to be honest, you're better off having your own stuff anyway. It doesn't cost that much money. It really doesn't. And then you can do everything you need. You're not dealing with just me. And I don't do practitioner advice. You can't send me something. Hey, I have this kind of wart. What should I do? My answer to that is you need to go do a search in the programs database and find stuff for warts. That's what I'm going to tell you to do. And so, I just don't do that. It's not who I am. I can help you figure it out, and I do that on Facebook all the time. But that's what I do. I work on a donation basis. My view is I've dealt with a lot of people who've literally spent their last dollar buying stuff on Spooky because they're trying to have they have some treatment they want to do with it. If you fall into that category and you can't figure out how to install stuff, send me an email and we'll set up a session to get you going. And most people will donate money to me, and that's great. I appreciate it because I spend about 3 hours if I do a consultation. We usually spend 2 hours in a Zoom answering every question you can come up with, installing things, setting things up, and then I spend another hour putting the notes together, doing the video and sending it to you, and all this sort of stuff. That's all part of what I do. It's just what I do with that. I mean, there's a few times it's not like that. We just have a discussion on what you should buy or whatever. So you can, any questions or whatever, email me at spookytechhelp@gmail.com. And like I said, I'm pretty responsive for that. All right. So copies of the presentation, you can email me for that as well. It'll also be available on the Spooky2 Academy website once this gets done, which by the way takes, well, actually for me, generally by Friday, my time. So Saturday in China, it's been uploaded, but they're on vacation, so it may take longer. Be patient; it'll get there eventually. But you can also email me, but I don't. The PowerPoint presentation will be available immediately. I don't have the video because Spooky does that, but I can send you a copy of the presentation. And please take the survey when you get it. That's how Spooky figures out who their good presenters are, and they'll have them do stuff, and also with the comments that say, hey, I need training in this. Everybody needs training in this sort of stuff, and so that helps as well. My training resources. Okay, Spooky Right for Life, the Facebook group. I'm on there every day, and so are a bunch of other really talented people. It's a great place to ask questions and do research because trust me, whatever question you have has already been asked 1,000 times. You may not be able to find it in Facebook because I don't think Facebook is the easiest place to search, but you should look there yourself. This is my YouTube channel, my @SpookyTechHelp, where I have a bunch of stuff out there for various things that people ask and whatever. And some of them are things like how do I install the drivers, how do I run biofeedbacks, all that sort of stuff. They're how-to videos. I mean, I've done biofeedbacks where I did a formal presentation, where I did an hour presentation like this and then talked and answered questions for an hour. But on the other hand, most of the stuff that you do with Spooky is actually a 4 to 6 minute, here, do this, 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 and this. And so I have those sort of things out at out on my YouTube channel. Just the nutshell of it. My Telegram group, which I answer as well, hopefully quickly. My email again, because I can't put it in here enough. And I have PDFs of all my presentations I've done and the worksheets that go with them. If you've watched one of mine before, you need more information, I have all that stuff there. Finally, Spooky2 training resources. The user's guide, which I really like. It is far from perfect, but it's the stuff that'll tell you what everything is on the screen and all. You just click on the help pull down Spooky2 software and click on the user's guide and it'll open it up. It's a PDF. The quick start guide. The quick start guide is you should have gotten a hard copy of that with your Spooky2 equipment. And there's also a soft copy of the same thing by using Windows File Explorer, and that's the quick start guide. And then finally, let's see, what else? The Spooky2 Academy, events, event list. That's where you're going to find where you can sign up for the upcoming stuff. And it has all the stuff that's been, that's ever been done in the last 2 years. You can click on that. If it's already been done, you can watch the video. Those videos are actually at vimeo.com/spooky2. If you want to just go find the videos that way, that works really well. And of course, there's the YouTube, the Spooky Rife videos. There's lots of good videos. However, and they used to post all their stuff there, but Google was censoring stuff, and so it became debatable. That's why they switched to Vimeo. But keep in mind, especially for um, for YouTube, if you're going to search on videos, look at the stuff that's made at least since 2020. And when I got my scaler last year, it's like, okay, now how do I set this up? And so I'll go to YouTube. Went to YouTube and found a setup video by John White. Oh, geez, just John White. It'll be perfect. So I started watching it, and I'm watching it for a while, and I was going, that machine doesn't look like mine because they made some changes to it. And then I closed that, and I found another one that was newer, and went through it that way. So there's a lot of really old stuff out there if you want historical stuff, but it doesn't apply. I wouldn't look at any video that was made before 2020, my personal opinion. Okay, so my closing summary. I hope you found the session useful. Video will be available usually within a few days. You can send me if you have ideas for future sessions, please email me. I'd like to see those things. I'm always looking for new ideas. Next month, I'm doing geez, you have all this equipment and cables. What do I do now? That's what I'm doing. Hopefully everybody on this particular seminar is already past that because you're not going to do this I don't do it till next month, but it still needs to be out there, if nothing else, for reference. And so, okay, open Q&A. So that's where we are now. So all your questions should be in the Q&A at this point. Let me go open that. Oh, got 46 questions out there. I will answer these. Again, I don't do stuff in the chat generally. I might look at it at the end when I run out of things to answer. Okay, Ellen. You mentioned another presentation used DMSO. That wasn't me. I don't use DMSO. It's not me. I know what it is. I've never used it for anything. And so that's not me. I can't answer that one. That may be one you could ask in Facebook or look around for that, but I don't use, and I would not use it for contact mode, by the way. Contact mode is running electricity through you, okay? And DMSO is not going to help that. DMSO helps get chemicals and whatever. It facilitates them getting into your body and bloodstream. At least that's my understanding of DMSO. It's not going to make any difference at all for contact mode. Actually, could make it hurt because it's going to make you conduct more. It's not a good idea. I would not use DMSO with this. So I did answer that question. Okay, Luke. I read lots of negative comments about the colloidal silver kit. Works fine for me. I've never had a problem with it. All my friends who have it, they like it. I've not seen the negative comments, so I can't answer that. But I've made a bunch of colloidal silver, and I usually make it double strength and then dilute it later because it's easier for me to do that. It seems to work fine for me, so that's the best I can offer. It was worth it. I like it, and I do use it. Sabrina, Herxheimer can run on the same machine you're running Detox, sort of. So if you're talking about the same generator, yes, there actually are there's some presets out there, some canned presets, factory presets that are running Herxheimer stuff at the same time they're running Killing and all that. And what they've done for that is a really advanced concept. I mean, it's super advanced. It's really cryptic how they did that. That's the best way to put it. And so it's not something for the faint of heart. I probably will never do a presentation on that because it's so involved. But yes, it is possible for that to do. Now, if you're talking about the same computer, yes, you can run lots of things on the same computer, but you can only run only as many things as you have generators. Hopefully that answers your question. Dobrin. I think that's how you pronounce it. Although I'm an expert, could be Dobreen. Is it possible to run all programs on remote and contact sometimes at the same time on Gen X Pro or Gen XM and when you are near on contact and where you're not on? Okay. On the Gen X Pro actually has two generators. So you can have different things on each generator. Um, but one of the things you have to understand, you can only do one delivery type per generator. So if you have if you have an XM or you're using one side of a Gen X Pro, you can have remote on it or you can have contact mode on it. You can't do both at the same time with a single generator. You just can't do that. And also keep in mind that the recipes, so the settings and everything for remote and contact are different. So that's you wouldn't want to run them on the same generator anyway. Okay, this is from Monica. Appreciate if you could show how to set timing. I got to think about that one. You want to run this 3 times a day. Let me make a note of that. That's actually a lot. It sounds like a really simple thing to do. It's a lot more complex than you think. It is possible to do, but not within, I'd have to figure it out. It's possible to do. I actually don't like well, there's a lot of timings you can do here, and they work differently depending whether you're doing chaining or not. And it's really ugly if you're doing chaining. And so I don't have a direct answer for that. Monica, if you'll send me an email, spookytechhelp@gmail.com, I can cough up an example for you then of how you could run, would pick some multivitamins or something that we'd run at 8 a.m. and then 8 hours later and then 8 hours later, that sort of stuff, because it's not as simple as it sounds. It sounds like it should be done, but Spooky doesn't actually support the concept of running the same thing once every 8 hours. There's nothing in it for that. That's the difficult part. There's a way to fool it to do it, and that's why I can't answer it here. It's really easy to say, I want to run these vitamins and build something right, and want to run it from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's relatively easy. But to run it 3 times a day is more complex. Send me an email, and I can cough up an example for you. Sharon, how do I get system internet and errors to show up in my software? Oh, from that, you go to the utils pull down at the top of the screen. Let's see, can I do this? Let me see if I can share this differently. Stop share, and screen. Now you're seeing my whole screen. Who knows what's on there now? Oh, good. That's what's on there now. And then if I go to Spooky Test, hopefully you see that. No, that's here and utils at the top of the screen, and then toggle advanced features. See, if I toggle it, I turn it off. Now I can only see what you saw. But I want it on. And I leave it on all the time. In my opinion, the other is worthless. Okay, so back to this. All right. Done. Albina. I need to update my Spooky software, but I never know which option to choose. They're too technical, like certain bits are the choices. Which is the best one without the old version? Well, any of them that you install will they don't delete anything you had. So anything you've saved, all that sort of stuff, it never deletes it. So one of the things you never want to uninstall the Spooky software ever, and you never want to delete the Spooky2 directory because all that stuff goes with it if you do. So so you do an update. Let's see, what do I have that's open at the moment? This one, open these. So you should be seeing my Vivaldi screen, which I use. We go to spooky2.com, likes it, it's up. And down here, we go to downloads. And what I do in downloads when it runs is I don't get the full package ever. I go in here with the Spooky2 and whatever it is. I'll click on that. It'll download it, and then I run it from there. If you need more detail than that, send me an email, or you can just go to my go to my YouTube site. In my 40 some odd videos on there, I have one that's that's an update. It's specifically for update. And I think you'd find that will answer all your questions. David, why did you choose 50? Huh? Why did you choose 50 instead of 550 or 570? Well, I'd love to answer that, David, but I don't know what you're referring to. I don't remember why I said 50. I can't answer that. Why don't you resubmit the question so I can figure out what you're talking about? Okay. And Anna, I just read Anthony Holland Harmonic. Does it come with the software? No, it's the Anthony Holland Harmonic comes with the software. So what that means is if we go over here, if we go back in here to presets and home, and it's in all of these, well, I'll say most of them. I go into shell and remote. See the Anthony Holland stuff? That's what this is. So yes, you can use those, and I do use those occasionally. That has some other advantages. I was starting with the basics of just a basic heal or kill, because basics are better when you're first starting out. But I do use this occasionally. I don't ever use the duals. The dual was something that that John White did to reduce the amount of time it takes for things to run. And so so it doesn't have. And the way it doesn't have is there's two outputs from the generator. One of them is they do one frequency on one, a different frequency on the other. And so you get through the list of frequencies and have the time. Neat idea. I don't think doing things rapidly is necessarily that good. Because one of the things that the way it works, because you have the remote, it actually mixes the frequency, and so you get both frequencies at the same time, plus a whole bunch of harmonics. And I just don't like that. I would rather, it makes more sense to me, like some of this is your own personal, how do you feel, to do one frequency at a time. That's why I do it that way. But yes, here's the 11th harmonic. You can certainly use it. Okay, David. I read in place about people replacing, updating the DNA. Replacing. Well, the official Spooky view is that fingernails are good forever. Okay, and that's interesting. And they seem to be. I mean, obviously, if the FBI doesn't seem to have any problems with that. We're not the FBI. I know other people like Brad Johnson who believes you need to replace them every 3 to 4 weeks. But like I said, the official answer is they're good forever. Practitioners I know are doing it every 3 to 4 weeks. What you do is up to you. Okay, anonymous. Ooh, anonymous. Will Spooky migrate support Unix? Sorry. No, they're never going to do that. They are, in my opinion, they should do Apple, and they're not going to, before they do Linux and Unix and all that. They're just not going to. I mean, they're to be honest, they're not doing any active development in the Spooky2 software. They do some things in it, but it's more like adding like this new release, they added a couple fields and all that, but they'd have to rewrite the whole software, which it could use, in my opinion, but because I was a software developer. But no, it's never going to be done in there. And frankly, like I said, I mean, this machine that I'm running this presentation on is a virtual machine. It's a Windows 11 virtual machine on my Linux system. So if you want to do stuff, you're going to have to run Windows somewhere. It can be virtual, but you're going to have to run Windows somewhere. And for most people, the vast majority of Spooky users, the best thing to do is to get a separate laptop just to run Spooky on, because all this other stuff, while it's not that hard for people that are somewhat technical, actually it's a lot of fun for people that are somewhat technical, it's not something that most people really want to do. Okay, David, my tab that's overwrite generator is no longer showing. Oh, that's a good one. That's because, and there's good and bad to that. I kind of like that. Now, if you actually look here in the systems tab, in here, there is a always overwrite generator. If you click on that, then it automatically puts it on. Unfortunately, what it should have done is it should have automatically checked it. It doesn't. It's done under the covers, and it takes that option off the screen. So, I mean, that's what it does. So that's what it does. I kind of like the idea, but I don't do that in my presentations because I find it confusing. I think you just need to I think you should turn this off like we see here, turn that off, and you'll have it in there. And you just need to get the habit. That's what I think. Because there's actually a few times I don't want to overwrite the generator. Okay, that. Melanie, can we touch again on, oh, all 7 tabs? Cool, yes. So here we are. We have all 7 tabs here. We click on utils, and that's what toggle advanced features does, this one here. And notice I put it in normal mode, which is the mode you'll never use. And so now it's in normal mode. And so now there's only 4 tabs. That's probably what you're seeing. You click on utils, click on toggle advanced features, and now you have all 7 tabs. And don't change it back. Trust me, you don't want to do it. Hopefully that got your answer to your question. What is the age factor? Oh, that's a fun one. So age factor in the control tab, what they're asking about. And by the way, this stuff like age factor and everything on this screen is actually documented. Let me bring this up. Help, user's guide. This is the user's guide. It's all in here. Whether you can find it or not, I don't know. Let's do age factor and see if I can find it. I know where it is in here. Age factor. Actually, it is in here. Age factor. So, it's in here somewhere. It found it somewhere. Anyway, you can, so that's one of the things you could do. Factor. Yeah. If I spell it right, it'd probably help. Factor. Because this is not Google. It's not going to see. There's age factor. Now, what that actually does, if you want to find out the details, what that actually does is that. Wait a minute. Let's minimize this. What he's asking about is this thing called age factor. That's useful for testing, is what it boils down to. So if you have something and you want to run through it faster, you can set this to 100. It'll go through it 100 times faster. That's not good if you're actually trying to treat someone. That's not a good thing. It should always be 1. There's no way to get through things faster and have it work the same. It doesn't work that way. You got to go through stuff. What I use it for, though, is I'll put stuff in this VG down here. This is a virtual generator. The virtual generator is not an actual generator. It acts like a virtual or like a real generator, but there's no way to hook up anything to it. So if you want to see how things are going to run because you're doing advanced things like timing and all that, you can put it in here, you can run it, change the age factor 100 times faster and see what it's going to do. That's what that does. That's a good question. Where can I find the full names of those short forms? I think you're asking maybe about the programs tab and like this one, the HC. There's a couple of, one of them is this. I mean, you can hover over it and it'll tell you what these things are. If you're asking about, the names in the programs tab here, that's what this stuff is. So DNA is, come on, oh wait, no. DNA is, that's what that is, okay? I think that's what you're asking. If not, ask again. Okay, Steve. Any reason to consider? No. You're asking, I believe, about contact mode and the red leads, about black leads. No, it doesn't make any difference which one you place where. You don't need to worry about that. Put them on any way you want. Pedro, what does the VG generator control? Oh, I talked about that. The VG generator is a virtual generator. It's a pretend generator. It's something you can do to test things out, to see how they work, or see. One of the things I do sometimes is I want to see what frequencies are going to be run. And so I have to actually load it and run it, or at least have to load it to get the list of frequencies here in this list of frequency. So I use it for that. I use it for timing to see what it's going to do, that sort of thing. But that's what's it's for you, so you can do testing without actually having anything hooked up and not using one of your real generators. How would I set this up to work on 2 people? Well, you probably need 2 generators, 1 for each person. When people ask me how many generators do I need, the answer is, well, you're probably going to need at least 1 generator for everybody you want to treat, because you're not going to, you're not necessarily going to be treating the same person. There's exceptions to that. Terrain is a great example. Terrain is a basic detox that we recommend you run immediately on people before you start doing any killing on them. And for them, you're running the same thing on If you're around 10 people, you can put 10 DNA samples in there and it runs it on all 10. But if you're treating somebody for pneumonia and somebody else for a skin infection, those aren't the same. You'd need separate generators for that. And the reason I say a minimum, sometimes some people use multiple generators for the same thing, or they use multiple generators for a person. So there you need multiples for that. And for me, yeah, I'm going to be running a remote 24/7 on whatever, and then I'm going to need at least one other generator that I'm using to create stickers and that sort of stuff. So it's usually the number of people being treated plus one or two. But you're going to need two generators. Which device is the most powerful? Well, it depends what you're doing. If you're talking about killing, it's plasma by far. Plasma, and if you have a serious problem, you really should be using plasma. If you can afford it, use plasma. Second best to be contact milk. Now, if you're trying to heal things, frankly, the scalar is the best for doing healing things, but it also takes a long time to heal anything. It's really interesting. If you're using scalar, very few people see any results with scalar for at least 3 months because it's healing. It takes a lot longer. But from a power point of view, it's plasma by far. Anna, to use it remotely, so I leave my Spooky at home working, yep, and I leave to go to another city and stay for the weekend. My question is, do I need to carry anything with me to make this work? No, you don't. So if your computer at home is running a remote 24/7, it doesn't matter where you are. It has your DNA sample in there, and your DNA goes with you. You don't need to do anything different. So I think that's what you're asking. That's the advantage of a remote mode. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're underground, in a plane. If you're in a room that's totally RF protected, don't matter because it doesn't work that way. So I think that's what you're asking. Yeah, that's it. Yep. So that's what you're asking. Okay. Terry, if the database gives you 5 options for the same ailment, how do you determine which one you chose? Well, you can certainly run all 5, and a lot of people do that. That's one option. There's also, and it's not in here because it's a biofeedback thing. And I think I covered that in my biofeedback thing I did 4 months ago. There's something called what's it called? Shoot, I can't remember. Biofeedback, home, biofeedback, generator X, grade scan. What grade scan does, this is a biofeedback sort of stuff. You can say, oh, here's all these programs. Figure out which ones, or the frequencies from all these ones are best for me. That's what grade scan does. That's beyond the scope of this. But if you go do some research on grade scan or watch my biofeedback one that I did a couple months ago, I'll talk about it in there. But the tendency is, and in a simple mode, I put all 5 in. As long as I didn't exceed the 4-hour limit, I'm in good shape. And so to keep it simple, put them all in. Okay, Michael, I've been running remote terrain and my control screen doesn't have waiting for and demonstrate. Oh, I know what you're talking about. This is this guy right here, control screen. It's talking about this area. Does not do anything. That's because this area is actually used to display what's going on when you're doing biofeedback. And one of the things that happens, if we do this, because it's the way the software is done, and if I click on here, maybe, did it do it? It's supposed to. Anyway, there are times that it'll show stuff in here, but it has nothing to do with what it's doing. Absolutely nothing. So what happened to my so don't worry about it. Unless you're running biofeedback, it doesn't matter what it's doing. And generally, if it's moving and you're not going to be biofeedback, click on the screen and it'll quit. It won't do it anymore. Okay. Dobrin. Can we connect same time remote and contact using randomly one another? No, you can't. You theoretically, if the contacts aren't actually connected to a person, you could get away with that, but that's what it is, getting away. I would not do that. I believe you should only connect one thing at a time to your boost. So either remote or contact. Monica, how to use the golden presets? I'll look at it and see what it says. I've never used it before, I can tell you that. Remote and golden ratio. I know I've seen it. Some of these questions, We saw it. Oh, there it is, golden ratio. So what I do, like for golden ratio, I would then go look at the notes and see what it says in it. And I mean, John White, here's what it does. Does that mean it's going to work for you or not? No, it doesn't. And some of the stuff like I said, they built the stuff some time ago, and when they were doing a lot of experimenting, and they never took it out. Now, if you want to try it, that's what I would recommend. It's an experimental device. Give it a shot and see if it works for you. Now, especially if you try in the healing, like the healing RJW, and it's not working, one of the things you can do is try the same thing with golden ratio or with Anthony Holland or whatever, and see if that helps. But I always start out with either healing JW or killing. Okay, Albina, I'm running terrain standalone. Ooh. So this is a question about running. She wants to run standalone GX. That means offline, not hooked up to the computer. And it's a challenge with terrain because terrain actually consists of 15 separate presets. So here's the problem. And I'm not a fan of offline mode of the GX. I'm not. I'll get in trouble for this, but I think it's more of a marketing point rather than something that's really helpful. And the reason I say that is because there's a whole lot of things it will not do. For instance, it doesn't support chains. So if there's 15 presets in it, you have to load each one manually. So it's going to take 15 slots in there. That's a lot of work. And then, yes, you're going to have to actually start it, hit loop, and then tomorrow you're going to have to go to the next one. That's what you have to do. That's why I don't like it. I like simple. You can tell by this presentation. And so, gee, if I'm running it hooked up on a computer, I can just load it, start it, forget it. And not everybody can do that, but trust me, you'll be a lot happier if you spend the money on a computer, because you can literally get a computer for $100 and it'll run Spooky just fine. It's a lot easier to do than using standalone. I'm not a fan of standalone, but yes, what you've been told about this is absolutely correct. So what happens is if you load terrain into it, all it loads is the first preset. It's all it puts in because that's all it can see. It doesn't support. Then you have to go load the second preset and the third preset. And you can load each one in a different slot because it holds 30 or 31 slots. Should be 30, but anyway. And so you'd end up doing 1 through 15, for instance, and then every day. So today you'd run number 1, tomorrow you run number 2, and so on and so forth. But I don't like it because then it's so much easier to just run it with computer control. Feel free to email me if you want more details. There's a bunch of stuff it won't do. For instance, if you have a preset that has sweeps in it, a sweep says, I want to do all the frequencies from A to B. Sorry, no, can't do it. If you want to do contact mode is really interesting. So frequencies under 10,000, you can feel. You can't really feel it at 10,000 above. And depending how sensitive you are to getting the crack shocked out of you, that can be a problem. So contact mode automatically, anything below 10,000 hertz, it automatically cuts the amplitude in half. So you don't get zapped as much. And it has stuff in it that's going to ramp it up a little slowly, so it's not real sudden. None of that is supported in offline mode. If you're running contact mode, you're getting the full zap for every frequency there is. Another reason I don't like it. So hopefully that helps you. Deborah, what does I don't know, paraplegia, what does, I have no idea. That's a Google question. You do a Google on that, they'll tell you all about it. And that's what I'd have to do, so I'm not going to bother. Dobrin or same issue, Dobrin. You're going to have to do a Google search on that and see what it says and figure that one out for yourself. Because it's not a spooky question. We're kind of presets into shell appears that empty placeholder building your own script recipe. Why are there so many why are there so many ones? And we're looking at it right now. If you look at that, there's actually in here, and this is remote. Okay, this is where we are. We're in the remote, and it says there are 28 different ones in here, and there's 28 different ones because various people thought this would be a better way to deliver these frequencies. And there are examples, like for instance, the DNA things. That if you're going to do DNA, you need to use a DNA preset because there's certain parts of the recipe, which is amplitude and waveform and all that, that works best for these things because they're very high frequencies. The HC stuff is like the way Holder Clark did her stuff. One of the things I do, and a lot of people like this MW emulate. So for instance, if I wanted to emulate ibuprofen, if I wanted to, you can do that. Yeah, you can emulate a drug that way. And notice there's 3 different ones in here. I would use the JD ones. I would not use the JWs in there. I like this guy. He's active right now. He's this professor in mathematics. He does a pretty good job on his notes. And actually, one of the things they did 2 releases ago is they used the settings from JD. This is not what JW did, what John White did originally. And so I like the JD ones. If I can use a JD one, I tend to, because he thinks these things out. But that's why they're in there. I mean, if you want to do emulate a molecular weight, which is a substance, then you have to use a special one. You just can't use healing or killing. You can, but it wouldn't be near as effective. So I hope that answers that question. Another one from Dobreen. When do you choose that's well beyond our capability? Amplitude, frequency or amplitude wobble. Okay, so the concept of that's in here. The concept of that is that some pathogens will move around pretty quickly, or they develop a resistance quickly. So amplitude wobble, and I'm not going to go too much into it, and frequency wobble, what they do is that rather than hitting it the same all the time, they can change the amplitude of the wave and they can change the frequency back and forth. That's what those do. And so for some people, and I don't have a real opinion of it. For some people, they think this is more effective when you're dealing, especially with advanced pathogens. That's what they're there for. Okay, so please forgive some covered. We use the remote when we have the fingernail clippings on the pad. Yes, actually, what we do is we use the you take a fingernail. What did I do with that? I was just using this today. You take the fingernail, and if you can see this, you should have got these papers that have a bunch of these little paper discs in them that look a whole lot like I can figure out which side they're on it. That look like this. See, it's just a little round thing. And what you do is you put a fingernail in between this one and another and sandwich it together. And that is what you put in the remote. And the reason you do that is, number one, you can label it, and because what if you have multiple people in there, you can have their initials in them. And I actually put the initials and the date on all the ones I do. And so, and you need to have, if you're going to do multiples, you don't want them touching. You want them separated by something, and that's what the paper stuff does. And also, it helps keep the fingernail centered, or at least close to center. It's not that critical, but you don't want it all the way on the edge in there, so it keeps it stable in there. Sharon, setting up my generator, my remote. My remote is this. It does not come out, but it can rotate. Rotating is okay. They do rotate. Let's see. We'll stop share for a second. See what we're doing. So I have this here. Oops, what done? Okay, there we are. So here we are, and I'm making myself bigger. This is my XM that I have here. And you're talking about, I think you're talking about doing this. That's okay. It can do that. That's not a problem. What you have to make sure of the BNC connectors is that they're snapped in place, so I can't pull it off. And I can't pull this one off either. Don't pull it too hard, but it shouldn't come off. If it comes off, it's not hooked in correctly. So it's not locked. If it does this, yeah, if it does that, theoretically, it's not locked in. Because these go in and then they turn a quarter of a turn and snap into place, and then you can do that. So I think that answers your question. Let me go back and share my screen. Okay, where's my Q&A? If I can find it. There it is, Q&A. Okay. So yes, it can rotate. That's not a problem. It's not a fixed amount the way that type of connector's done. Denise, I've never been able to find a program for. So okay, so what I do for that is I would go do a search in Google and see what it says about it. What you're going to find likely is it's going to describe the disease. And so it's going to say it's an inflammation of this, or it involves the pancreas, or whatever it's going to say, and then I'd run programs for that. That should that and if you're having trouble with that, send me an email and we'll go look it up to see what I can find. Is there a list of programs that we can view? There is the frequency when you first log into the Spooky site, you can request this PDF of everything, and that's essentially what it is. And so it gives you here's the program and here's the frequencies in it. It's a pain to use, but that's so there is that in there from the on the Spooky2 website. You can request. Michael, I've been running remote terrain for last week, and my screen the control panel doesn't have a waveform demonstration. It's not going to. It doesn't need a waveform in the lower right corner. That's only if you're doing, really, it's only if you're doing biofeedback. When you're not doing biofeedback, you are doing killing, or actually you're doing detox. So that's fine. So it shows up in biofeedback. Monica, my generator shows running in test mode. How can I change that? Okay, so what that means is that when you started Spooky2, it didn't find any generators. One of the things you get when you started it, it says, "Hey, I didn't find any generators. Do you want to install the drivers, or that sort of stuff, or you want to continue on?" And so essentially what it means is that when you started the Spooky program, it couldn't see any generators. Now, why can't it see any generators? Well, the easy possibility is they weren't turned on. They have to be turned on before you start Spooky2 to find them. That's the easy. The next thing that's possible is that you didn't install the drivers. And if that's the case, if you know it's there, you need to send me an email, or you need to go look at my YouTube site, because I actually have a video. It's about a 4-minute video on installing the drivers. The drivers install shouldn't be difficult, but it is. And so, and it's hard to explain why it is, but you could follow that, and you can always send me an email. I can help you figure out what's wrong, but that's what it means. It's in test mode because when you started it, it couldn't find any generators. Notice mine here in the background says it's in test mode because there are no generators connected to this machine. I'm just using this for demonstration purposes. Dobrand, what is healing dual? Okay, dual means that it's going to go through this list of 40 frequencies or whatever it is that it has to go through. It's going to run frequency 1 on out 1. It's going to run frequency 2 at the same time on out 2. And so it takes half the amount of time. As I said, I really don't like that. I don't like mixing the frequencies. I feel more comfortable doing one at a time, but that's what it is. Carol, would you recommend us getting equipment? Oh, that's a good question. It depends on what you're trying to do, Carol. It's not that simple. If if you have cancer, if you could do it, you need a plasma system. And they sell a nice plasma system that has a GX Pro, a silver generator, and an XM. That's the bare minimum you need with that. If you can't afford that, then you need to be thinking about it's going to be about $1,200 for a GX and an XM, because you need them both, in my opinion, anyway. And if you can't afford that, then you can there's an XM kit, and I can't remember the actual name, that's about $500. And if you can't afford that, it keeps going down the fair. So it all depends on what you want to do. So if you want to send me an email with what you're trying to do, I can answer that better, or you could type in another question and I can answer that a little better. Like I said, I have a bunch of equipment because I'm trying to do a lot of different things. So it depends on what you're trying to do. And keep in mind, Spooky builds on itself. You can't buy anything that you won't use later on. So anything that you buy today, and I'm going to upgrade the system tomorrow, that's fine. Everything you're using now, you'll still be able to use, and you can do this extra stuff as well. So that's really good about that. Oh, what are stickers? Stickers are holographic stickers. You can get it to show up that I get from Amazon. And what you can do is I put those in a remote and input frequencies in them, and then I stick them on as direct treatment. I don't use them for killing normally. I use them for healing. I use them, like I said, I sent some lumbar stickers with my wife and some restless legs. I did a whole presentation on this in August. This is September. It's in July or August. That's a good one to go look at Spooky2 Academy. because I go through the step-by-step of how to do it. Feel free to email me on that if you want some more information. I really like them. I use them all the time. That's what I do for all of my neighbors. If they have a problem, they get a sticker, because I'm not going to dedicate one of my remotes to them 24/7 unless we have some sort of special relationship. And I've done that for occasionally. But like my neighbors next door, when I do stuff for the husband and wife, they get stickers for knee pain or shoulder pain or whatever they're doing. That's and I like them a lot because they're cheap and it's easy to do. Herman, uh, I connect the Spooky pulse feeds. Yes, you should not do that. So he's using a Spooky pulse, and Spooky doesn't like you to connect their USB hub. The reason they don't like it is it's a very precise way to measure your heartbeat, which it does for pulse mode biofeedback. And so, and the problem is it's not as stable if you go through a USB hub. At least that's their opinion. And I've played with it both ways, but I don't do that very often. You certainly can plug it in that way and then do a rescan, which is once you plug it in up here in utils, there is let me move this out of the way. There's a rescan devices. Theoretically, that's the best way to put it. It's supposed to rescan stuff. And then over here in the system tab, which I said we weren't going to talk about, it should show up here in the connected hardware. On my system, it didn't. When I hooked it up, I had to reboot the system for it to see it. So, but the Spooky pulse will show up here with your generators as well. Now, whether it'll work in the USB, I can't answer that. The Spooky people say you shouldn't do it because it won't work reliably. But I don't have the experience to tell you. Susan, if I use a blood sample for a remote, how long is the blood samples are only viable for a few days, for maybe 3 days, because they dry out and they don't use. That's why. No, he didn't. Okay. All right. So I'm reading the rest of it. Sorry. John White said a blood sample should be used rather than a fingernail if you have a bone marrow stem cell transplant. I got to think about that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with the statement. I mean, if you're trying to treat whatever, maybe you have some sort of stomach problem. Well, it's going to have your basic DNA in it, which is going to be in your fingernail. If you had a bone marrow transplant, your blood may not have the same DNA in it. It may have some of it, but it won't be the same. So I would never use blood in that case. I wouldn't, unless I'm trying to treat something that's blood related. In that case, then yes, you need to use a blood sample for that. That's what I think. So, and by the way, in this case, what you're talking about, I would be using the sample digitizer, which I really like, because in the sample digitizer, you can use a liquid sample and it'll go scan and find the frequencies for whatever your problem is, if it's a pathogen. So it'll scan your blood for pathogen frequencies and build a custom set of frequencies to kill those things in there. So that's, I hope that makes sense. But as far as using blood, you can use blood for a DNA sample in your remote. That's only good for a few days because it dries out and degrades. That's why we use fingernails most of the time. So I hope that answers the question without going too wild on you. Norm, can you share fingernails with a friend? Share fingernails. I'm not sure I understand the question. You can certainly have different fingernails from different people in the same remote, but they have to be separated so that each one needs its own paper tape around it so they can't touch. But of course, if you're doing that, then you're running the same programs and same frequencies against both people. I hope that answers your question. And can you send, you may be asking, can you send fingernails to a friend with a Spooky? And yes, that happens all the time. There's lots of that. I'm expecting some fingernails from my father-in-law who lives 1,200 miles away in about a week. Norm. Oh, in the same holder. Yes, as I pointed out. So that was a continuation. Sorry, Norm, I didn't see that. Yes, you can put them in the same one. They have to be separated by like the paper tape stuff, so they can't be touching, but you're going to be running the same frequencies for both people. It's very common, especially for new people. They get their machine and they're running and they're running terrain and they want to run it for everybody in the family. And yes, you can do that as long as the fingernails are separate and then you do it on a single generator. Monica. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Monica. Hopefully I helped you out. What do you use for sleep program? You know, what I tend to, well, the sleep programs haven't worked super well on me. One of the things I do like to try, actually, I'm kicking it off again tonight, is since we're talking about that, in here, home, in heal, and in remote, there's actually a daily wellness program. And the daily wellness program consists of 4 presets. And I think there's a problem with it because I don't think these numbers work. But I'm playing with that now. So there's a sleep induction followed by multivitamin, mineral, daytime and evening. And you start this at like an hour before you go to bed. And you have to start it right then. I'm supposed to kick it off at 9 o'clock tonight, my time. And so, but these are this, whoever put this together did their own stuff. So I don't know that you would use gold ratio. I mean, you can use anything that works for you. It's a healing sort of thing. So if you're going to do sleep programs from the programs tab, you could certainly use the gold ratio. I'd probably use it. I'd start with the heal JW. If that didn't work, frankly, I'd probably go to the 11th harmonic. And if that didn't work, I don't know what I'd do from there. Pedro. Hello again, Pedro. Where can I find the terrain program? Okay. So terrain, which is a startup thing, which I will probably do next month as part of this. You go to presets and then home. And then this is detox. And then this is terrain protocol, at least in the newer ones. This used to be not there. They used to be different. And but this is where it is for the last 3 releases, I think. I think all the 2025 ones. So it's terrain protocol, and then you're going to say remote, if that's where the way you're going to deliver it, and it's right in here. That's the terrain protocol. Christy, with the nail and remote, how often should they be replaced? Well, the official spooky view is you don't ever have to replace it. And lots of people have done it that way. If you're talking about maybe some of the practitioners that I know of, they like to replace them every 3 to 4 weeks. And I've been told by him that if he goes to 4 or 5 weeks and then he replaces it, the people could tell difference. I don't know. That's never been with me. I like to try to do mine monthly, personally. That's what I prefer to do. But it's up to you. Vincent, how do I unpause a port on a Gen X Pro? So are you asking, back to control. So this is a 3 and 4 is a Gen X. So if I go in here and I hit pause, it goes to yellow, then it's paused. Notice everything else is okay. To unpause it, I hit pause again, and that will continue where it left off. Now, there's a couple gotchas there. Number one is if you're doing a biofeedback at this time, the biofeedback pauses all the generators while it's running to make sure there's no interference. So, if I was running biofeedback on 3, it'd pause the rest of them until it was done. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but that's the way I believe. Now, if you're doing this offline, that's a whole nother matter, and you'll need to re-ask that question. Done deal. If I run a scan, where the program then begins to start running frequencies, how can you save those frequencies? I know what you're talking about. So what you're talking about, I think, we got presets, and then home, by feedback, and then generator X. You're probably talking about like a hunt and kill, which is a very nice one. What hunt and kill does is it does about a 19-minute scan to begin with. And then when it gets done with that, it takes the top 10 frequencies and runs a killing program on those. And then when that gets, which takes 30 minutes, by the way. And when that gets done, then it goes back and just rescans around the original frequencies. So instead of taking 19 minutes, it takes a couple minutes, because what can happen is you're killing pathogens, and they're smart enough so they can, well, we're going to die if we stay here, so we're going to move over here a little bit. And so it looks for that and tries to hunt them down that way. I think that's what you're asking. But then how can you find the frequencies? Because you don't get a chance to save those. Well, theoretically, if I get this into something that, let me do this. That didn't work. That didn't work either. Let's go back to, well, it did work. If I go down to where I could see this thing, and I couldn't see it before. This is on my Windows 7 system. We go into control. You can actually go into here and you select the generator, stop it. That's what analyze and analyze plus does. If I do an analyze, and I don't know on this test system what's anything there, it does have a few. When it does those biofeedbacks, it actually creates a file here. And so you can go to the last one and say, yep, I want to analyze this one, say open, and it'll give you the 10 frequencies from that one. That's what it does. And then you can save it from there. That's what you want to do. I think you've sort of done this before, so I didn't go into too much detail. Again, all I do is I pick a generator that's not in use, and I could probably pick the VG, but it's got to be, I think it's got to be a GX and do an analyze, and that's a basic one. If you do an analyze plus, that's the same thing as doing the angle and current. So hopefully that makes sense for what you're doing. We maximize this again. All right, done. All right, David. Herxheimer can run. Okay. Herxheimer can run on the same machine that you're running Detox. If we have a GX Pro 2 generators, can we make one that might run concurrently? What I do and what I recommend people do is if you're doing any killing, well, actually, sorry, if you're doing serious detox, I recommend doing a Herxheimer preset on another generator. So in the case where you have two generators, I might be running detox on G1 and the Herxheimer stuff on G2. That's specifically what I do if we're doing if I'm doing stuff for cancer, because you're using heavier duty stuff in cancer. I like running the Herxheimer actually in a third generator in that case. Pedro. Okay. Okay, I wouldn't mind that. Terry, I've tried every shooting tip I can find to keep my XMDN from freezing. Generator over. Okay, they're not less stable. Okay, for that, Terry, you need to go back to my May presentation. Again, go to Spooky2 Academy, or you can send me an email on this. I actually did an entire one of these presentations on generator errors, and it covered all the reasons that you can get them, and with a lot of concrete suggestions on here's how to fix them, especially with Spooky Central. If you have the plasma installed, most of the time, all you need to do is replace the USB cable going to the generator that's driving the Spooky Central. It doesn't always work. That works about 90% of the time. It's a simple $13 fix. And describe it there, or you can send me an email and we'll talk about it. But it's very common to see generator errors when you're running the Spooky Central. Julia. Okay, thank you, Julia. So I would like to have a sleep program at night, same time. Well, if you set up something, so this is running a sleep program every night. So we're going to go to presets because we're going to do that. Home, shell, remote, and we're going to use healing RGW. And then we go over to programs and we do sleep. So there's a whole bunch of sleep in here. And I don't know what you want to do with it, but let's pick, let's see if I can get some EDTF ones. No. Well, let's take this one, this one. Let's add that, oops, and add that, okay? So we put these in. So now this becomes advanced. So I wanted to run these. So what I can do with this, I've created this, and it's going to repeat forever. Then I can go into the settings tab here. And in the settings tab, I can say run this from 10 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's AM. Scroll more. From 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. 6 a.m. Okay. So I want to run this from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. all the time. Once I've set that up, and I would save it, but I'm not going to, I can put this in this generator and then I can hit start. And what it'll do, it paused itself. So if it's outside the hours, it pauses itself. When it gets back inside the hours, this will go green until it hits the end. So again, that was the same thing we've been doing. You do a shell, add the programs, and in settings, you can do the run from the scheduling. This assumes that you're doing a single preset. If you're doing chaining, it gets a lot uglier. I try to avoid that. But we just did this a fairly simple way, so that should work for you. Shauna, I don't understand why you're saying to run programs for so many hours. Well, I'm saying that for this example we're doing things remote. And remotes work best if you run them 24/7. If you're, because, and for one reason, it's not, it's connecting through a fairly, it's a remote way. And so it's not like you're getting a 1,000 volt shock through you or whatever for 2 minutes or whatever, or like with the plasma, where the plasma is very powerful and it's 6 inches away from you. It's not like that. It's a very gentle sort of thing. So to get the most out of it, you need to run it 24/7. I think that answers the question, I guess. Okay, Derek. My booster is a bit inaccessible as it's kept inside cabinet. That's too bad. I too can, that is a pain. I too connect systems B and C connectors, both B and port and the high power port. I switch between using remote contact mode using test bands. No, you're not gonna, you won't damage it. I understand what you're saying. If you can't get to it, then you're using extension cables. So yeah, and sometimes you want to use remote, sometimes you want to use high power port. As long as you disconnect one or the other, you'll be fine. What I would do for that is I would disconnect, well, you may not be able to disconnect the tens cables. I don't know whether you have those on an extension or not. If you do, I disconnect it. If you don't, then as long as you don't have pads in it, connect to anything, you're probably okay. But obviously, if you're running contact mode, you need to disconnect the remote. You need to disconnect it, otherwise it's going to consume a lot of the power. And the easiest way to do that is you put it on an extension cable. So, the end of the cable, wherever it is, that's not connected to the remote, to the boost, you will disconnect that from the remote itself. I hope that makes sense. Pedro, confused here. Sorry about that, Pedro. I try not to confuse. Went to preset, then detox, then terrain, then remote. What? So back to this. I would do presets, home, detox, terrain protocol. Then you're going to choose remote. How are you going to deliver this? That's your next question. So I do remote, and then there's a bunch of things in here. So what it amounts to, this is the full terrain. This detox, this is everything. Detox is everything. This terrain minus mercury is for people that have mercury fillings. The recommendation is that means terrain minus mercury. So it's terrain, but it's not going to detox the mercury out of your body because they're afraid that you get Herxheimer reactions. That's debatable. And this is a non-violent one. It actually takes some stuff out. It's terrain, but there's some parasites it doesn't get rid of because people tend to get sick if you kill the parasites. And so those are those three options. And then these are the low power versions. Some people, when they run terrain, it gives them really bad Herxheimer. And so they'll run the low power one for terrain. And so because it normally runs at 5 volts, so it can go all the way down to 0.25. And in that case, what you should be doing is you'd start here, run this for 11 days, then move that one for 11 days, that one for 11 days, that one for 11 days, and finally the last one for 11 days. So you're talking 55 days to run them all. That's the idea. Hopefully that made sense. When I do a BFB that turns on DNA frequencies, this is typical. Well, the only way you're going to know that's doing DNA frequencies is you're doing a reverse lookup, which I don't like. A lot of people think you can do it for diagnosis. I don't agree with that. That's not the purpose, because all it does is says, oh, I found frequency. I found 5. Okay. And then it looks through the 62,000 programs we have and says, which of these has something close to 5? And it says, well, here's one for it. And that doesn't mean you have that. It just means there's a program out there that has that frequency in it. Personally, what I tend to do, it depends on why I'm scanning. If I don't think I have anything that's DNA related, I turn the DNA database off if I'm going to do a reverse lookup. But frankly, I rarely do a reverse lookup. I don't see any point in it. I really don't. If I'm doing a biofeedback that says, here's the 10 frequencies of pathogens that I found, my view is they need to die. And I put them into a killing preset and I run it. So I don't care what they are. So if you're getting DNA stuff, that's because you're doing a reverse lookup, and I wouldn't recommend. Okay, David. I read that terrain protocol works better with contacts. No, there's no sort of number. For most people, the remote version is enough. Okay, and that's enough to clean you out pretty good. But obviously, if you do contact mode, and actually, if I just last month, yeah, last month I did on the Cancer DB protocol, and the Cancer DB protocol, the first part of it, phase one, is detox. And when you're doing it, you're detoxing with plasma or contact at the same time you're doing remote, because it's the same stuff. It's a much more thorough one. So it depends on your situation. And there is no number for it. It's supposed to be a lot better because you're being more direct about it. Essentially, contact mode is, I gotta remember. I think contact mode is supposedly 20 times stronger than remote mode, and plasma is like 15 times more than that. So the theory is, if you play the numbers, which I don't, is that you'd get as much out of an hour of contact as you would out of 24 hours of remote. But of course, if you're remote, you don't have any wires attached to you. So it's 6 of one, half of the other there. If you're not, I would start out with remote unless you have some serious medical problems. That's a whole nother question. Richard, should contact mode via TenSpans be used on Gen X Pro and standalone? I would not. I would not do that because like I said, the contact presets are smart enough to know to reduce the amplitude for lower frequencies that you can feel, and they also ramp them up and down so it's not as sudden. And the Generator X cannot do that in standalone mode. And if it says here, do 400 hertz at 20 volts, you get 400 volts at 20 volts. If you did it when it's connected to the if you did it connected to the computer, it's actually going to only give you 10 volts, and it's going to ramp up for 4 or 5 seconds to the 10 volts, and then it'll ramp down when it's going to go down to the next frequency. I don't like it for contact mode, Frank. I wouldn't recommend it. You can do it if that's what you need to do, and try it out. Pedro, I'm confused here. I'm sorry again. Went to preset. Did we do this? Different choices. No, I covered this already, I hope. If not, ask it again, because I think we just went through that. Anonymous. After hooking up from the generator, we should dip, nail, or clip a nail, put it in the box, let your generator recognize. No. So what you need to do is you need to turn the generator on. You need to start the program and make sure it recognizes the generator. And then before you run anything, then you put a nail in between the little paper circles and put that in the remote before you start the generator with the frequencies in it. Hope that answers it. Melanie, can you please remind me what the next step is after you've loaded programs in the shell? What do you click or where do you go from? Okay, so what we do, presets, home. So what we're going to do, oh, wait a minute. First I got to make sure I have a place to run it. We're going to run it in 5. Remember? Step 1, make sure there's an empty generator. Presets, shell, remote. And I'm going to do, we'll go back to my standard one. We're going to do healing, and well, that could be fun. Let's do killing. Sorry, this guy. And then we've got programs, and we say ulcers, if I can spell it. Oh, there's tons of them. Okay, so you pick in this case, I'm going to pick the ulcer type I have. We'll use canker sores. Use that. And so I double click on that, and I'll double click on this one as well. Hang on a second. I was wondering if we're going to do that. Wait a minute. I told my Alexa to set an alarm to remind me to start something, and it interpreted as play this song, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, so we added canker sores in there, right? And then if I just want to run this, then I go to Control, Overwrite Generator, click on the generator I want to run, and hit Start. And now it'll run these canker sore things. That's what it's going to do. So again, make sure you have a free generator that stop, load your preset, add some programs, come into Control, overwrite the generator, and hit Start. Okay, Shauna, Hama is a generator. Oh, okay, best to start printing. How much is a generator? Depends on what you get. You can get a remote kit, a next time remote kit for 166 US dollars plus shipping. And that gives you a generator, the power supply, the cable for it, a boost, and a remote. It's a great deal. That's why I have 15 generators here. And that's why I've only ever bought 2 silver generators. The main advantage of the silver generators, you get 2 generators, but still a lot more money, but you can do the biofeedback in it is really good. That's why you would get one. Now, let's see. I did not need generals in the hunt and kill. The best to start a personnel. It takes 50 minutes. I can do 5 people a day on the same generator. I don't understand this question, Shauna. I'm really sorry. I mean, if you're doing a hunt and kill, you've got people hooked up to the generator, and it's going to take about 19 minutes to do the first biofeedback scan. Then it's going to treat them for 30 minutes. Then it's going to go back and do about 2 or 3 minutes of scanning. Then it's going to treat them for 30 minutes, and so on and so forth. So I don't understand this 5 people a day thing that you're talking about. I'm very sorry. I suspect you're asking about in a commercial environment. In a commercial environment, you're not going to do a hunt and kill. What you're going to do is you're going to do a scan for 20 or so minutes. You're going to set up something with some sort of remote killing, and you're going to run that for the next week, and then you're going to come back in and you're going to do it again. Which, by the way, is about what you need to do. Okay, so I listened to a webinar where they mentioned precaution with detect mercury fillings. Okay, now, so the mercury fillings, that's actually back to this concept, what they were talking about here, home, detox, terrain. This is the terrain versus terrain minus mercury. I just saw something on Facebook about this. And the general view is what they're worried about, why there is a terrain minus mercury, is that if you have mercury fillings, you probably have mercury all over the place, including the fillings, and the fillings especially, and that could give you Herxheimer reactions just because you have mercury fillings. This particular person, who I think a lot of, his view is he'd tried the terrain first, the full terrain, because if you have the mercury fillings, you probably have mercury throughout your body that you need to get rid of. So, but that's what they're talking about. There's no real hardware precautions of the body with detox. Depending on what your body's condition is and all that, and if you have parasites and all that, yeah, what may happen is you may get Herxheimer reactions, which means you're killing stuff or you're purging stuff, and you're doing it faster than your system get it out. So it makes you feel like you have the flu, or it gives you backaches or that sort of stuff. And usually that's a temporary condition. And if it's not, then you need to consider a lower power version and that sort of stuff. But as far as actually doing damage or whatever, no, you don't have to worry about that. And all of Spooky, you can use all of Spooky for everything if you have metal implants in your body. Don't worry about that. The only thing you have to worry about is if you have electronic devices in your body. That's a whole nother matter. If you have electronic devices in your body, really the only thing you can run is remote mode. Anything else becomes debatable, especially contact mode. If you have a pacemaker, you really don't want to run electricity through your body, and so on and so forth. Okay, which are your preferred presets? That's a good question. I always start with healing and killing. Those work most of the time. If they don't work, then I like, or if I just feel like I should, I like the Anthony Holland 11th Harmonic. Although that's more for healing than it's for killing, although I use it for both. And if you really want to get out the big guns, the Universal H Square Bomb is the biggest gun there is from a preset point, a shell preset point. But it's also the most likely to make you feel sick because it's doing such a good job. Charles, is there any difference between using 3? No, all of Spooky stuff is 2.0 USB. It's all, so it doesn't make any difference what your USB hub is, what your computer is. It doesn't make any difference. It'll work because there is no USB 1 anymore, and everything else is downward compatible. Okay, would you use emulate? Would you use? No, I would not use emulate the nootropics. Nootropics is, I use emulate with molecular weights. Nootropics is not molecular weight. And let me show you if I can find it. Miscellaneous, nootropics. I would have guessed. And if I go in remote, and if I look at, I mean, these sound like they'd be that. Let's use this alpha, whatever the heck it is. See, I don't even know what it is. This is an example of what I told you about before. We go to control tab. I want to see what it's going to really do. Overwrite generator, put it in the VG. This is what it's going to do. Oof, that is a molecular weight. But it's a preset. So in that case, the using the emulate stuff is a shell. It's only used with programs. This is a preset. It is fully self-contained. You load it and run it. And so what's it going to do? There's probably a square wave. Oh, these interesting waves. And so basically, these are self-contained. This is, for all intents and purposes, macaroni and cheese in a box that you need to. And actually, the macaroni and cheese that you need, the only thing you need to add is water, because it's self-contained. You don't get to choose any of that stuff. The person who wrote this stuff made it as a load and go. So you don't worry about whether you're using emulate, because you can't. You don't use shells with this. You're just going to load it and run it. Nadia. I have 5 nails and 5 6 in a row. Good, finally. No, you can do that. I've seen people use 10 or 12. As long as the remote closes all the way, you're fine. Don't sweat it. As someone might be, well, they're pretty close to centered. I mean, the 1 inch circular stuffs will only move 1/8 of an inch or so, even 1/4 of an inch. They're fine. They don't have to be perfectly centered. You don't have to have the nail perfectly in the center. I just don't like it along the edge. Jeremy. Can one use PEF coils that are not supported? I can't answer that. I'm probably not even supposed to answer that. So can you use non-Spooky2 equipment with the Spooky2 equipment? Probably you can, but I've never done it. I can't answer that. Probably not like that. Probably not allowed to answer it, but I can't answer it anyway. So I don't know. I think the toroidal coils need a lot more power. I think some people have driven the amplifier. They do the coil, they get an amplifier, and they hook the Spooky generator to the amplifier and do it that way. I know some people have done that. That's a good one for the forum if you want to ask people there. Forum is a wide open thing. That is over. If you go to spooky2.com, there's a forum in there. You need to join it, and you can ask questions there that may or may not be answered. So that's just the way it is. But the really technical stuff, that's the place to go. Shauna, why do you need blood samples so long? Huh? Why do you need a blood sample so long? Put it in the remote thing and run the program. Do all the programs take hours to run? No, the programs usually only take 30 minutes to a couple hours, but you're going to run them 24/7 in a remote because that's the way you get the best results. And since you're running it 24/7, you may be running it 24/7 for 3 weeks. The blood isn't going to last that long. A nail will. So that's what that means. It's just that there's very little, I can't think of any actually, where I've seen results in less than 24 hours using a remote. You just don't. It takes longer than that to have an effect. It's a very low power situation. Carlos, have you had any success in healing glaucoma? No, I haven't. There are a number of articles out there in the forum stuff about treating glaucoma. I have not done it, so I don't know. It's not me. And there's a Spooky2 Success Stories Facebook group. That's a great place to go look as well, to see what people have to say there. I'll be on hunt and kill. Can I run both biofeedback and killing only sample digitizer? Nope. Nope, you can't do that. The sample digitizer cannot act as a remote. If you're using a sample digitizer, you must use a separate generator in hunt and kill, because it's going to do the scan for the sample digitizer, and then you got to somehow deliver the frequencies, and you can't deliver the frequencies with the sample digitizer. Sorry about that. Dr. Gorman. How would I run a program for push remotely for a person who can't sleep? Well, what I would be doing is in the presets, let me show you. In the presets here, so this is shell multi presets, remote. And what we want is down here near the bottom, MW remove. So I could go there, and then I could go into programs and see if I can type this in, because I FLOUR ORO see something. That's too bad. Oh, makes a difference if I spell it right. Like I said, this is not Google. So it's probably one of these. Um, I don't know whether these are, oh yeah. See, it's a synthetic flavonoid. Ah, okay. So you'd figure out which one of these it is, or all of them, and you can add these in here. So let's add a few of these in here. And these only run 3 minutes apiece. And so because I'm using the MW remove, I could do that with these programs, and it'll work on getting your body to take that stuff out of your body. That's what that's what this MW remove does. Okay. That's to remove stuff out of your body. Done. Okay, next. Doctor, how many generated if I'm helping 6 people simultaneously? You're gonna need at least 6. Okay. And again, assuming that you're running remote, you're gonna be running them 24/7. My view is you're gonna run them for a week and then see if it's helping. If it's not, you're gonna be thinking about running a new biofeedback or changing the waveform or trying some different programs. It's not a simple question. Have you ever checked this? I haven't treated anybody. But Morgellon, actually, there's an entire Facebook group for Lyme and Morgellon. And if you look in here in presets, there is Morgellons and Lyme. There's a whole bunch of stuff for that. It's a long process. It's hard to get rid of. Now, one of the main administrators for the main Facebook group, got rid of her Lyme. Took 3 years, but it's all gone. She had had it for years and years and years, and that sort of stuff. So my advice is to go and join that group on Facebook and take a look at that, see what you can find. There's also the success stories, which you may find information there. Okay. Herman, but I can connect multiple generators or a USB hub. Yes, you can run lots of them. I actually, like here in my office, how many do I have at the moment? I think I have 14 XM generators in here, and they're all connected through a single USB hub to a single crappy computer. So yes, that's how you do that. You get a USB hub and connect all the ones you want. Does hunt and kill require 1 or 2 generators? Well, if you're doing sample digitizer hunt and kill, it requires 2. If you're doing contact mode hunt and kill, it only requires 1 because it can use the TENS pads then that it's using for detection as well as treatment. Sally, I've been running experimental sleep to induce. Been running DH experimental to induce. Okay, that's not a question. So yes, I mean the DH, which I don't think I have installed in this machine. I don't. There's something called the DH experimental presets, which you can download from the download page. They were done by David Halliday, who's a big name in this sort of treatment. He has like 412 things, which are very unique. It's beyond the scope of this particular presentation to go into that, but it's well worth loading and installing in your Spooky system. Why did 2 of my generators freeze and the other keep working? Freeze is an interesting question. Freeze generally is a generator error. And what a generator error is, all that means is that Windows can't talk to the generator anymore. And depending on why it can't, things may continue on other generators. On the other hand, depends on what the error is. Sometimes it locks up the whole system because Windows is trying to recover from the error. So it's not a simple question, but that's the reason it can happen. But generally, if you do get a generator error, the first thing you do is you go into utils up here and you say rescan devices. And that'll clear a lot of generator errors and they'll connect you from there. But sometimes Spooky doesn't even respond because it's having these problems. If you get into that, then what you really need to do, and you can also have a problem in the generator where it won't recover, where you actually have to do a power on reset to the generator. Now, if you get one of these things that is debatable, what you do is you shut down the computer all the way to power off, you turn off every generator, and then turn it back on a couple seconds later, then restart the computer and restart Spooky, and that'll solve the generator error for that time. It won't fix the reason you got it, but at least you'll recover from the error itself. Okay, and Aaron, do you prefer coils or plasma more? Oh, there's no comparison. If you're asking about the PEMF coils, I like the PEMF coils. They have some advantages, but the plasma is far more powerful. It depends on what you're trying to do. I like the coils. I've used PEMF coils. I covered that in a April or May presentation. I really like it. I used it for tooth problems and that sort of stuff. I like it a lot, but plasma is much more powerful, and so that'd be my first choice. Okay, so we're pretty far out of time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to ask any more questions in the Q&A box. And if we don't get any more of those, then we're going to be done for the day. We're down to 112 people still on. That's pretty good, considering how long we've gone. So we'll look at the chat as well. Hopefully I've helped people here. That's the whole idea. I'm surprised I got so many of these. Let's see. Durban. People. I would not use the Spooky2 port. I don't like it. I don't think it's the best quality. I would prefer to get a name brand like TP-Link from Amazon. That's what I've done. I've had one and I've had weird problems that other people have as well. So I wouldn't get the one from Spooky. Sorry. And that was the doctor. I'm treating a patient by clinic. How long would each treatment take? Well, I don't know what you're doing. It depends if you're building things from scratch. As I said in programs here, when I was looking at programs, I mean, I add these things in. This is 15 minutes, but I could add. Let's see. Let's do infection. If I do an infection, each one of these has a different amount. So it depends. I mean, if I wanted to run just this one, it takes 72 minutes to run it. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing things with biofeedback, which only detects pathogens, I might add, the scan takes 19 minutes, and then you have to build something out, and then it creates a 30-minute treatment. So you could do that in an hour. Hopefully that answers that question for you. David. Interesting question about chat about drug withdrawal. Brad Johnson actually has talked about that. He did something where he was helping people get off of one of the drugs for pain. And what he did is he actually he imprinted small vials of water with the drug, and he would and this person would carry him with him. And if they started getting a desire for it, they'd drink the water. And after 4 or 5, 6 months, he finally got off of. So that's the only answer I can give you. So yes, that does help. And he liked to imprint water with it, do it that way. And I think he was doing a scaler for that, I think, to do the imprinting. Approximately. I realize it depends on the presentation. Like I said, it depends on what you do. Yes, I think you could do it. You could do a lot of treatments within an hour, an hour, and that would be contact mode. Although one of the things I would do for me, yes, it'd be great to come in there. You do contact mode for an hour, but I would want to have a dedicated remote as well for them. So it means a dedicated generator that you're going to do 24/7 as well. You'll get the best results from that, in my opinion. RAM trust, how do you get it in test mode by not having any generators attached to your computer. When you start Spooky, if it doesn't have any generators, you're going to get a message saying, sorry, I didn't find any generators, and it's going to start up in test mode. But when you get out of test mode, you need to get your generators hooked up and powered on, and then start Spooky, and it should find them. Aaron, I am BFB, and now kill for the results. Would eventually stop on its own. Well, so you did a BFB, you saved the 10 frequencies, I think, is what you're saying. And then you created, I guess, a remote killing preset for this. Remote automatically runs forever. So it has no way to stop that. Generally, the rule of thumb is if you're doing this based on biofeedback and you're using remote for treatment, you do a biofeedback, and then you run remote for 5 to 7 days, and then you do a new biofeedback, and then run that for 5 to 7 days. That's the general rule of thumb for that. Manisha, I hope I spelled it. Plant mercury, release mercury. No, it will not release mercury from teeth. It will not do that. Don't worry about that. Deborah, sorry. Can we help to detox an addiction with cocaine and mutilation? The answer to that is yes. Yes, you can help with that. And there's several different ways to do that. You might try running it 24/7 to begin with, and then start cutting it down to 18 hours a day, or maybe you cut it down an hour, or cut it down an hour every day, or that's probably too radical. But yes, yeah, that you could do it that way to help detox or get somebody off of a cocaine addiction. Although, keep in mind, they have to want to get off. There's nothing you can do remotely to help somebody get off an addiction if they don't want to get off. I mean, I've seen people want to do that. My friend is whatever, I'm going to run this on him without his permission to try to get him off it. That's not a good idea. You should never run Spooky on anybody without their permission, even in remote mode. Okay, back to Aaron. Also, while I'm running a kill program from a BFP, can I run another kill, separate generator? Well, if you're doing a killing, you probably should be doing some sort of the detox maintenance on another generator. That's the first thing. The second thing is you can actually, when you're building the preset, you can say, well, maybe I have this virulence infection, and I did a biofeedback, and that created some 10 frequencies. What I may want to do in that case is, did I do a killing on this? What did I learn? Oh, I did that. So let me show you. So we go in here, we do a shell and remote and killing. And then if in programs, let's assume that I have a biofeedback, that I have something in there. So I have these. So I could say, yep, I want to add this in, but then I had infection. I can actually add that in as well. So which has some advantages. So I decided I'm going to add this one in as well, and maybe the others. So you can add these all and you can combine them into one and run it that way. And that's a very effective way to do it, because a lot of these programs are really good programs in here, but the biofeedback is finding the 10 most ones that sell. So that's the advantage of doing that. I hope that makes sense. Miriam, can we load the Spooky programs? Yes, I can't do it. It's down here so yes, you can use the microgen stuff. I have no idea how to do it. I don't own a microgen. So, but yes, you can load programs from here into the microgen. I just don't know how to do it. Okay. 9:22, 20. So we've been going for 2 hours and 22 minutes. All right, I'm gonna give you guys 2 more minutes. Or at least that's the plan. 2 more minutes to ask any questions. And then we're gonna close this down. We're down to 107 people. So we've got a lot of people here at the end. I hope this has been really helpful for people. That's what I really want. That's what I really try to do. It's really important to me to do that. I want people to be able to use it. I think it works really well. Does it work for everybody on everything? The answer is absolutely not. It does not. Will it work for some things on everybody? In my opinion, yes. So whether it'll work for you, I can't answer that. All you can do is try it. I've got some cancer stuff that I'm probably going to be doing this next weekend on my mother-in-law. So hopefully that'll work out. And you got another minute and 20 seconds. Yeah. And then we're going to shut this down. Thank you, everybody who's still here. Appreciate that. Holy cow. Okay. I appreciate that. And psychotherapies. Yeah, the people have tried to do this psychotherapy stuff. I suggest that you go to the success stories in Facebook to find that information. And you might find stuff in the blog area because they have articles they do. Do you use Baseline? Never. I remember when Baseline came out, and it sounded like a really interesting idea, like a lot of things do with Spooky, but I don't think it ever worked out. And I tried it, I wasn't happy with it. All of the administrators on Facebook don't use it, even though the official thing, oh, you should use this. I don't see it. So I don't see it making a lot of difference. I wouldn't do it. All it does is double the amount of time. Thank you, Miriam. If you run a remote without DNA, you wouldn't do that. I mean, if there's no DNA in it, there's no way to send you the frequencies. So I don't see what you're asking. I mean, there's no way to send you the frequencies without DNA in it. There are other devices that you can do things on, a radionics for one of them. They can do pictures and that sort of stuff, but that's outside of Spooky. Although Spooky will talk to it, but you still need the radionics device to do it. Okay. All right, we're gonna shut this down thing. All right, going once. Type fast. Use refined. I've never used refined BFB. I do hunt and kills. Hmm. Yes, I put the hologram stickers directly into the remote where the fingernails would be, and then I run frequencies in it to put the frequencies into the holographic sticker. Again, I did that in August. I think I did that presentation in August, or I did it in July. You really should go watch that because I go through in excruciating detail of how to do it. The goal of that was when you get done, you can do it literally because I go through all those steps and there's some nice handouts to go with. No, I don't. Rem Trust, I don't do the radionics. I have one because I use it to imprint water and stuff, but I don't teach it. Sorry. That's fine. At 9:30, I'm going to shut this down. There still seems to be a few questions, so if you hurry up, because I have 9:26 right now, we could go forever with this. That's the way Spooky is. People have a lot of good questions. Every question we've had tonight has been excellent. They've been really good questions that needed to be answered. And that's one of the advantages of going to these seminars, no matter who's presenting it, and no matter what they're presenting, at the end, you can ask anything you want. So not only do you learn some cool stuff in the actual presentation, but any other questions you have, there's a good chance the presenter can answer that for you. And in many ways, I find that's the most helpful part of the seminar. It's worth going just for that, for a lot of things. 3 more minutes, and we're done. Hi, Marilyn. I didn't know you were here. I'm new to use the handhelds. I actually don't. I have, but normally I just use the tens pads because I'm lazy. And I don't want to sit there holding them for an hour or whatever it is. Although I've actually suggested to people they have a problem, that if they had a problem with their thigh, they could put their thigh on top of it, which has some advantages because it's a bigger area. And so it's less likely to zap you because it's a bigger area. But I've only used them a few times. Actually in here, there's a pretty neat thing you can do. Resets, um, uh, shell, foot bath. You can do foot baths with it. So if you want that, take a look at that. You can use the foot bath with it. So you can do frequencies or for detox or whatever that way. I've never done it, but I've seen it. Which way do you actually have? I don't know. It's just a basic one and the extension plate for it. So that's what I have. It's a basic, it's just the basic one from, who's it from? The guys in the UK, but I can't think who they are. Send me an email. I'll send you a link to them. It's one of the things I bought initially. Anonymous journey treatment. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, you need to go through it. Just pause, disconnect anything you have to, and then unpause when you're back. The exception to that is that's not such a good idea if you're doing biofeedback, but if you got to go, you got to go. Michelle, thank you very much, Michelle. Email. Email is, let's see, spooky help at gmail.com. SpookyTechHelp at gmail.com. Thank you, Dr. Roman. I appreciate it. And have you done the zapper? No, I've never done the zapper. I don't like getting zapped. I spent too much of my life doing electronics and getting zapped. I don't like contact mode at all. It hurts like mad. Always. It just drives me crazy. And so I will use it if I have to, but I don't like it because I don't like getting zapped. What at the top? There are no top frequencies around Natalie. Doesn't work that way. You need the frequencies for whatever stuff you're trying to solve. Now, if Optimum Health, what I'd recommend for that, if you go into Home and look at Heal and look at the remote, there's several things in here that are interesting, that are worthwhile running. So that's where those are the main things I would start with. But the other thing is, if you install the DH experimental frequencies, which I don't have time to do now, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff in there. I mean, you put that in, you'll be amazed. And when you install it, it shows up here in the main panel. There'll be a DH experimental frequencies, and then it's got versions, and these are presets for a remote and all that. And there's just amazing stuff in there. You need to download and look at it. Do we still need a Zap reviews? That's an interesting question. I can't answer that. I don't really know. It's one of those things. If you had some competitive product that did frequencies, would you still need Spooky? Everything is different. So there is no one-to-one with that. That's the best way to put that. Okay. I think we need to close it down because I have a feeling we could go on forever at this point, and I really don't want to do that. Nothing personal, but I appreciate the website for downloading DH is spooky.com, and the download section, it's about the third or fourth thing down. It says DH experimental presets. You'll do the same thing. You'll download it and then run it just like you did Spooky, and it'll add the DH experimental presets into your Spooky program. If you have problems with that, send me an email, ask on Facebook, ask customer support. They'll help you with it, but it's real easy to do. Okay, I think we are done. So thank you everybody for attending. I appreciate it. Hopefully everything will be good for you and you get your problem solved. That's what I'm hoping for. So good luck, and let me know if you need anything. So where do I terminate this thing? Stop share. That's right. Share. And thanks a lot. Talk to you guys later.